Start the stream up.
So no more talking about that. Oh, and we're live.
We are.
Yay. Okay. Fine. Let's see.
Oh, look at that. The producer even got the right thumbnail loaded ahead of time, unlike me.
Oh, no. Where'd my Skype go?
Uh-oh. Where'd your video go?
That's what I'm wondering.
Are you on Windows? Are you using the new Skype for Windows 10?
I am.
If you are, if you close it, it will keep the call, but the program will disappear.
Okay.
So if you relaunch it, you'll be right there back in the call.
All right.
I discovered this
that shit about.
I don't know.
It's called Skype is free, is what it's called. So that's what it's called. That's exactly what it's called. You have 20 new updates. Would you like to update now? Sure, Skype. Oh.
So, believe it or not, I had a Skype update tonight, and it did it in like 30 seconds.
Sometimes Skype doesn't really have much for updates, but it's
right. So I'm like, oh, so
something.
the price I'm paying for fast updates is your fuckery and all the other bullshit. Is that how the programming works now? Because that's crap.
Yeah.
No, it's just you were the only person online.
Nice.
By the way, your camera's not showing.
Oh, of course. Why not? Why would we want to show the camera? Because being a pain in the ass.
Hi, AJ.
Why?
We got a Pup0 in the chat room.
Are you guys able to see me?
No.
The fuck?
Are you looking at the chat?
At the moment, you're just a little spermy swimming around in the circle.
Oh, great. Now Skype won't let me change the camera. That's fantastic. Just fucking great. Ooh, we're locking up. That's fun.
Yay, 4 squids and come back.
Got a paperclip. Where the hell did the paperclip come from? I don't know.
That's your Microsoft Word assistant trying to help you.
It's Clippy!
I see that you are trying to recover your file. Can I help you with that? Oh. Man, that was perfect.
You can try things like, hey, Cortana, where can I find my Word file backups?
Uh-oh. Lost to Gary. Boo.
That's okay. He's probably restarting.
Uh-huh.
Well, Cortana, that didn't help just giving me a link to see web results. Can't you just tell me? You're a Microsoft product. You should know these things. I'm trying to find a backup of a Word 2010 file.
Nope. Does not compute.
Computer says no.
Method 1.
No.
The option to find the word or phrase has been removed from Windows 7. However, you can use the search bar. Follow the steps mentioned below. Click on the Start menu button and select Computer. On the top right of the screen, you will see a search bar. Type in the word or phrase in the search bar and press Enter, and a list of files that contain that word or phrase will be displayed in the Windows Explorer. Method 2. I would suggest you add your files to Index. Follow the steps mentioned below. To see the complete list of locations that are indexed, or to add locations to the index, open Indexing Options. A. Open Indexing Options by clicking the Start button and then clicking Control Panel. In the search box, type Indexing Options, then click Indexing Options.
We're good, thanks.
Okay.
You didn't realize this was going to be the Microsoft Word preview, right?
Yeah.
I finally started actually partially using. Now I have 2 digital assistants because in addition to saying, "Hey Siri, what's the weather like?"
It's currently clear and 57 degrees in Austin. Temperatures are heading down from 60 degrees to 53 tonight.
I can also say, "Hey Cortana, what's the weather like?"
Right now, it's clear and 60.
And you only hear it in your headset.
Well, one's coming from my actual computer and one's coming from a thing.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Tibbers. You should be watching COL to celebrate your win yesterday, whatever it was.
Technically yesterday.
Yesterday. Although, I have mixed feelings.
What?
Because, like, I got so excited for Bayard for getting his drummer boy title, and he was going to complete in DNA, and then due to some drama, surprise, gay people, he had his title stripped.
Oh. Yep.
It was just because of like producers of the DNA organization. So I'm super happy for what he accomplished, but
yeah, that's gonna be. Let me just kind of let's.
You don't want to go on a rant here, but
yeah, I don't want to go on a rant here, so I'm gonna say let's table that conversation for either post show or maybe during the show. I don't know. I don't want to necessarily talk about it really because I'm not really affiliated with it. I know a lot of stuff because I've the friends and people who I'm in circles with, but I don't feel I can really or should really talk about it without having someone here to give a little bit more insight. But again, that doesn't mean I can't and won't, but maybe not necessarily at this point in time. Yeah, maybe not at this point in time. I'll leave it at that.
That's another show.
Yeah, that is definitely another show.
Plus, people will probably have to like give me more details. Remind me. Okay, Google.
Yeah.
Hey Cortana, remind me of COL Weekly Podcast at 6 p.m. Central Time, Sundays.
Remind you to COL Weekly Podcast at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Is that right?
No, it's on Sundays.
Should I remind you?
No.
Do you want to change the reminder, date, or time?
Cancel.
Alexa for seniors.
Uh-huh.
Jesus.
What are those kids up to?
I
That's
said the time
awesome.
wrong anyway, so.
Nice. I need to do. Now you're gonna make me look it up. Because it was a good.
They are just playing. We'll see about that. See, AJ, I got my sweet tea.
Because you're a good Southern boy and has sweet tea.
Well, it kind of comes from a joke from NAB Weekend.
Oh, okay.
And by sweet tea, I mean bourbon with a little bit of water.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Nice.
Poor Gary is lost in the interwebs.
So I'm playing this game. It's one of the various versions of a game called Criminal Case. I just got to a point where we identified the murder weapon, and it shows the phone booth. Because the person was murdered from a triggered gas thing from a phone in the phone booth.
Well, it's very MI5.
Jeez. It's like murder weapon, knife, murder weapon, revolver. In this case, murder weapon, phone booth.
I'm a little black woman in a big silver box. Sorry, I love movies, so that would have been Jumping Jack Flash for anybody who doesn't know that.
Oh, by the way, AJ just mentioned he doesn't see your sweet tea because we haven't actually switched to where they can see you yet.
Yeah, I just realized that.
So it's more of, by the way, AJ, I have my sweet tea. Nothing like a COL show that doesn't start with testicle difficulties.
Well, every once in a while we get 1 or 2 or 20.
You get 3, 5, 10, 15.
That's because someone's not tickling the testicles correctly.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Oh, Lord, it happened to you too?
No, I'm seeing Gary's post. Like, Skype interrupted restart. Anyway, we'll be on live shortly. In the meantime, please enjoy.
Well, the thing is, we are live.
Yes.
We're just haven't started. This is a pre-show, which eventually I may just edit out of the podcasts. This is just easier there. I go cut, boom. That's it. I want less work. I'm a lazy cub.
Nice.
I mean, do you know how much work it takes to actually edit these things? I mean, really. Nobody understands me.
Oh, that figures.
Hmm?
The spare room has a really big TV in it, and I'm actually using it as my secondary monitor. Whoops.
Oh, nice.
And I have to reset the format on the TV
Oh, no.
so I can see the whole thing.
Ah.
There we go.
There you go. Almost.
Almost. Well, I wanted to be comfortable. It's warm in this room, so.
Ah.
I'm in Texas, so.
Well, it's still cold outside, but it's warm in this room.
Yeah. That's why it's cooler down here than it is upstairs. That's why I have like 2 shirts on.
I just
Normally-
thought something.
Although I may take this other shirt off because it's getting a little warm around May. Actually, that's what I'll do. Be right back.
All right. A quick sound check. Do you hear this?
I do.
Okay.
Quick sound check. Do you hear this?
Nope. And fortunately, it wasn't visible, so it would probably be still okay for YouTube. Not recommended, but okay. You circumcised the podcast? What? Wait a minute. Oh, is it something to do with the testicle difficulties?
No, I think it has to do with your editing.
Oh. Just cut here, cut here.
Ooh.
And
Oh,
there
back.
it is. We
Now
have
we've
a
lost
Gary.
Now we've lost Damon.
Well, we haven't lost him. He just stepped away. He's still here. It's just that he's not at the computer at the moment. I love this game. This now makes you heir to the throne, which makes you a suspect. Why would you say that? Why would I want to become the heir of the richest kingdom in the world? That's just poppycock. I love this game.
Poppycock and doodle.
No, Gary video went away, but he probably switched over to the chat. Probably.
Yeah, he said he'll be right back.
Oh no, jeez. First we get Gary, then we lose Gary, then Gary comes back, but Damon has already walked away. Damon comes back, but then Gary has to leave. I'm just going to sit here and
Sweet tea.
It's delicious. Cheese. I love cheese.
cheese. You know, I should make myself a snack after this, like a cheese quesadilla.
Yummy.
But I was trying to figure out how I would want to do that. Like the method, because I have tortillas, I have shredded cheddar cheese. Now I just need to figure out what's the best way to make a cheese quesadilla.
Well,
First, you make sure you have money. You get in your car. You drive to Taco Bell.
You go to the Taco Bell and say, give me a cheese quesadilla.
nice. Well,
If I was going to do that, I would probably be ordering like a chicken quesadilla. Actually, I'd probably order a Contract Supreme or something else. But I'm talking about just like stuff in here where you don't have to go out.
Well, you you might need to. You would definitely want to warm the tortilla in some capacity. Then,
well, I also need to melt the cheese. So,
well, that's where you melt. You put the tortilla in, you get it warm, and you sprinkle the cheese in, and you fold it a pan. Then you fold the tortilla over, and then you let it sit, or you can put something heavier on it, like say another pan, and then you hold it there for a few seconds, and then turn it over and do the same thing, and then you have a warm grilled quesadilla.
I have a better option.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have a quesadilla maker. You just put the stuff in and squish it.
I mean, I have read some things about like using a George Foreman grill, except I think mine's too small.
Just make them little then.
Or you could use a waffle iron.
I don't have a waffle iron.
Or you can just, like I said, use a pan and.
Or you could be super lazy and you could actually get 2 flat wraps. You could put cheese in the middle of them. You could pop that sucker in the microwave for like 20 seconds.
No.
Done.
Can't do that.
Well, like, you wanted options. You've got options. If you don't like them, invent something new. Or Google it, for that matter.
Grubhub, Uber Eats.
Yeah,
Okay,
but,
Google.
you know, I'm on at least a little bit of a budget. When you use what I
Okay, Google. Okay, hold on. How do I make a cheese?
Quesadilla.
When I'm poor and lazy,
No.
make sure you ask that last part.
College student. Say the way. How does a college student make it?
Okay. Fold the tortillas in half over the cheese and make a half moon. Warm a skillet over low heat and add 1 tablespoon of butter. Add a tortilla to the skillet and cook it until it is lightly brown, around 2 minutes. Using a spatula, gently lift the edge so you can check.
So here's another option, which I find would find is better, because that's really, you know, just that folded tortilla. It's basically a cheese taco. We're talking about a quesadilla here. There's a difference. So I think maybe I need to actually just kind of like make a grilled cheese sandwich, but instead of bread, use tortillas.
So tortilla, cheese, tortilla, which is what?
Then cook it so it starts melting, and then flip it.
Got it. There you go. Tortilla, chicken case or cheese quesadilla. After dinner snack or after podcast snack. Speaking of podcasts, shall we start?
Sounds like an idea. Are we all ready? We have all of our stuff. Okay, cool.
I'm ready. Aaron is ready.
Yeah, I'm good. Let's go.
All right. Where's my soundboard? There it is. Where's my thing? There's my thing. Okay, cool. Now I'm ready. And here we go. 3, 2. It's February 25th, 2018. I'm Jeff.
Who's your bear? That's right. I am your bear.
I'm Damon.
You're muted?
Here. No.
I was just putting in a pregnant pause for our missing co-host. That would make me Gary.
Don't hurt nobody with your bad self.
And welcome to Comes Out on the Bear Podcast of Indeterminate Length, episode number 455. And just to say, we are missing the ever...
This room is a pigsty, and you're a dirty pig boy.
Chester. But we do have us is Aaron, Mr. North American Bear 27, Muscle Bear 2017.
Hello.
Muscle Bear.
What is going on?
I didn't even say your name, Siri. Shut up.
My name is Siri, but you knew that already.
Did Siri just talk back to you?
Yes.
Wow. Your Siri is sassy. My Siri isn't sassy.
Do you have a home pod?
No, but I've got my phone, my watch, and my iPad all right in front of me, and I said that name 3 times and they didn't activate at all. Because they're well trained in this house. That's why.
See, mine you have to say hey before you say Siri. So in theory. So I should be able to say Siri, Siri, Siri this entire time and it not go off. See? It didn't go off. I can also say, hey Cortana, what's the weather like?
And no one can hear it but you.
And she's not doing anything. Cortana, I hate you. Anyways,
Because she's on a break.
I'm on a break. I'm on a break. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
She's on a break. She's like, I'm getting my hair done, get on my nails. I'll get to you when I get to you.
Okay, well, let's find out this. Besides kind of figuring out that, oh yeah, I have 2 digital assistants because I do have Cortana, who sometimes works. She was working at least a little bit earlier, but anyways. And unfortunately, I can't select a male voice for her, which kind of sucks. So, Microsoft, get on that.
Sure they'll get right on that with their billions of dollars. I'm sure they'll.
Right after they fix Skype.
You got a good thought there.
This needs a drink. Hold on.
Yeah.
But sip their tea. Anyways.
There we go. There we go. 2 minutes into the episode, we've already thrown some shade.
Well, one of the things I like about my iPhone and my iPad is they have this feature called Night Shift, which kind of like my glasses also have, which has basically kind of like lowers the blue light that's coming from my devices, right? And I'm like, man, I wish Windows had that. I'm like, well, I did a search and they have something called Night Light.
Ooh.
So I think Google even has something called Night Shade, I think it is.
Shade.
I don't know. But so on Androids, you can do the same thing. So I finally applied that. So right now I'm looking at my screen as a nice a hue color, less blue colored-ish screen. So it's, which I really, really like, which means I'm also a little bit sleepy now that it's past sunrise because I'm not getting as much blue light from my screen. So that's been nice. Also, speaking of nights, I've also gotten back into Night Attack with Justin Robert Young and Brian Brushwood.
Okay.
And especially, and I just also saw on there, like, one of the things they do for is they have a segment called Diamond Time, where they pick somebody from one of their Reddit threads where they read off, like, you know, basically give somebody a plug. And one of them was for something I'll be talking about later, which is made by a former co-host of this show. Tease. I'm not going to say why. Anyways. And so it's been nice watching that. I've been watching, kind of like focusing on the... Gary's having issues. Focusing on the... Lately I've been focusing on the episodes with Mikey Newman from Movies with Mikey. And he's been giving them some of these really difficult, like, quizzes. And it's really fun watching them because sometimes Justin kind of goes off the leash because of how he's losing and Brian is winning with really weird reasoning. So.
Sorry, I spaced momentarily. I heard you say something about giving somebody a plug.
I thought it was all about a butt plug, but I don't know.
Well, that's what I thought he was talking about too. And then
More like a shameless plug, but not without
I was like, one of our former co-hosts made a butt plug and gave it to somebody? What? So confused.
Well, technically, it was my former co-host, but none of yours. So.
Oh, so it's a first generation bitch, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
The original series.
TOS. Anyways, Damon, how about you?
So funny story, kind of. So
you were on assignment
Jim and I
last
had
week.
Yes, I was on assignment last week. Jim and I had plans on Wednesday to go see the musical School of Rock at the Aaron Hudd here downtown. I don't know anything about the musical, and I still don't, because So Jim was going to pick me up at work, and then we were going to go to dinner, and then we were going to come back and go down and go see the show. Well, he called me, or he messaged me about 5-ish, which was when he was going to pick me up and say, "Oh, the car battery is dead." And I was like, "Well, shit." But I've got someone coming. He has AAA, so they came and jumped the battery. The guy told him he just needs to drive around for a while, and it'll help charge the battery, and then we'll be fine. Okay, cool. So we go off to dinner, not downtown. We go about 15 minutes away from downtown, and we get out of the car, go to dinner, have a really nice dinner, and then we get back in the car, and guess what? The car doesn't start.
Oh!
So we again have to call AAA, figure out what's going on. They give us another jump, and the guy tells us, "Oh, he shouldn't have told you that because maybe the older cars, maybe that was a thing to do, but now, no, that's not how it works. No." So, and it turns out that the first guy was supposed to test the battery, and they didn't test the battery. This guy did. The battery is not good. So, and unfortunately, the AAA guy didn't have the battery for the car that we have. So that meant going to running around and calling people and trying to figure out where it was. We found an AutoZone to hack the battery. We got the battery installed, which for his car now is a bit of a pain in the ass, but they got it installed. But that meant no School of Rock. It's okay. I don't know the musical. I didn't watch the movie. I know that it was Jack Black, and that's all I know. I mean, I know general premise, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's fine. I was fine with missing it. Jim was, he was a little upset and pissed off for obvious reasons because we had made plans and we couldn't do it. So I was like, it's fine. It really is fine because I don't think either of us were really that into seeing it. We were just had tickets, so we went. So that was the good thing kind of the week. And then yesterday, the men's chorus sang at the celebration of life ceremony for one of our former members and first members of the chorus named Chris Peterson. Mm-hmm. He had passed away unexpectedly last week. Ooh. And so we did a memorial service. We sang at that performance, and it was very touching and very because Chris was a beautiful person and a beautiful soul, and he brought light and joy to anyone who met him. And there were some unfortunate reasons why he passed, and unfortunate reasons about that. But the good is there was a lot of love and support and friendship and what have you in that room that really helped, I think, the family getting through this tough time, and the choruses were going to keep going. We're going to keep continuing. So it was a good and bad thing. I mean, it's sad that he was gone, and it's sad that he is no longer with us, but we will. The good thing is that Chris's legacy will, I think, go on. He was someone who was very open and to everyone and friendly and love and smiles and whatever to everyone. So I think that's something that I feel will continue with us. So there's that. Not to bring the mood down a bit, but it was something that happened to me and I really wanted to share it. So we've unfortunately lost to Gary again.
Yeah. So, Aaron, what's been going on with you?
Oh, let's see. So the rain has been coming down crazy here in Louisville. Yeah. So we're having sewer issues and water backing up. So I've still been trying to do laundry from NAB last weekend. I have to do it when the water subsides slightly and then wait until it goes back down and it comes back up. So, wedding preparations. Sam and I are getting married in May.
Yay.
So that's still moving along. And then I have an EPA audit coming up in March. So
gosh,
work is kind of hectic prepping for that.
I bet.
So that's me.
Nice.
Yeah.
And while we're waiting for Gary, we're going to just go into this. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, not that one. This one.
Now, whoever thought we'd be doing commercials?
I know I sure as heck didn't.
Being that we're a smaller scale podcast, we don't have advertisers knocking down our door to give us money, and that's okay.
Which is why we want to take a moment and tell you about 2 really great ways you can support Cubs Out Loud.
Over the past 9 years, COL has produced hundreds of audio episodes, and now we have matching video episodes for you to enjoy.
This year, we introduced the new COL logo and launched our new merch store over at Zazzle.com/CubsOutLoud.
Or you can also use the COL merchandise link on our podcast website to pull up the online store.
Here you can take a look through a range of products, including t-shirts, hats, poker chips, underwear, backpacks, and various other things with the COL logo on them.
And keep an eye out for new things to be added based on your interests and requests.
We typically can be found showing these great items off in the video stream of our shows.
Also, to help with our new format, we're doing YouTube video shows that help create the audio version. We have a GoFundMe campaign underway at gofundme.com/COLstream.
This campaign allows us to afford upgrading the PC that Jeff uses to produce our shows. Plus, a better computer means better quality streams.
And thanks in advance for not only listening to Cubs Out Loud, but helping support the podcasts too.
And our lovely guest here is wearing a beautiful Cubs Out Loud version 3 logo shirt. Which is that the same one that Chester caught you in at NAB?
It is.
Okay.
This was in one of the first loads of laundry.
It's very important that the Cubs Out Loud shirt get laundered. Exactly. Unlike me, who has like 3 or 4 COL shirts, and none of them are currently laundered, including this version 1 Cubs Out Loud shirt, which, by the way, looks best on one of the lighter colors, and I think I set the settings to the store so that they only get the lighter colors. Yeah. There is a version of that same shirt that Aaron is wearing, but with the mouth with white in it. It's listed as a COL dark because it's like because it actually looks better on the shirts. This one looks fine. The original version where we just didn't really think about anything and we just kind of threw it on a shirt.
Hey, it's all good.
I'm still very happy with how they turned out. So
yeah,
so they're all good. So it's not like you have to replace your shirt. We just made it better. That's all. For people who order future shirts.
Yeah. I have actually. So it's funny. Mm-hmm. I was realizing, so I went to NAB and I was like, oh, one of the vendors had like $10 shirts on, pretty much sale. And I was like, oh, let's get some more shirts. And then Killer Bob was there and I had a shirt. He has a shirt that I've been wanting forever. And I was finally able to get it. Well, I get home and I do my laundry. I get everything in and I'm realizing, I don't have room for any more of these t-shirts I have 2 drawers dedicated to in my chest of drawers that are just t-shirts, and I no longer have room. So I'm going to have to do some editing here in the near future, which some editing needs to be done anyway. There are some that are intentionally with the sale replaced, and then there are some that have gotten too small because of overwashing, what have you, and then there's a few others that I think I don't wear at all. So I'm thinking I'll just get all of those together, and they've all been laundered and stuff, and maybe donate them or, something along those lines. So,
or wear them again and then put them in an auction.
Yeah.
Oh.
Another way for COL to make some money is to auction off worn shirts. Now all you need to do is have too many jocks. And then, underwear, and we can go from there. Sure. Reason to work out is to put some skank on your
stank.
For sure.
Stank on them shirts. Funk.
Gary is still rebooting, but he'll be back, I'm sure. So we're going to go into this. Before I was about to press that one, but I didn't completely, and I pressed the right button.
Yay!
That's beside the point. Over on Facebook, for some strange reason, I feel like this is a finally. Tunky, do you know how to pronounce that name?
No.
I don't. Mullins?
Yeah. I don't know exactly how to. Yeah.
Let's see, it's kind of.
I know Tunky. It's Tunky.
It's Tunky.
I mean,
It's Tunky.
yeah.
I don't love the Tunky.
Hi, Tunky.
Damon, what's been going on over in the YouTubes?
So over on YouTube, as I get back to the doc, we have 2 new YouTube subscribers. We have Oscar Rosco Orejel and Taffer1969. Welcome. And then we actually have a comment on one of our older episodes. This was on COL455. Let's Talk About Sex, which was Give Me a Hand. And it's also from Oscar. And he says, hey, I'm 25 and I know everything you guys are talking about. So there's that.
Apparently, people can learn things from the young. How long ago was that? Let's see. YouTube.
So
how long ago was that? 350. COL455. That was 2 years ago. So when we recorded that show, was during version 2 of the logo, and with Daddy Hadrian, who wasn't quite Daddy at that time, I suppose. I don't know. I'm not sure what time he actually upgraded to Daddy status, but he got upgraded. And of course, we don't have a Chester, so we have no idea about our Twitter followers' comments and Tumblr comments. I'm not very good at pulling this stuff.
And for Should Think It Goes, I went to Tunky's page, and it's Tunky Secarecchio Mullen. Secarecchio. There we go. There we go.
You got to give it more of an Italian accent.
No.
I know. It sounds like it's an Italian-based name.
Soca my corca.
Oh no! Well, yes, but no. Oh, that's awesome. That was good. Good one, Aaron. Good one.
You know what? I'm gonna see if I can do a little stall tactic here while we wait for Gary. I'm going to actually pull something up here that we can do as kind of like an additional like fun segment.
I was going to say, is this still YouTube?
Yeah,
yeah.
on YouTube.
It's actually they do this on Naughty Tech. There's a bot on Twitter called the Would You Rather bot.
Oh,
actually, it's oh wait, we have a Gary, so maybe not.
Oh wait.
But let's do this quickly. So we're calling this Would You Rather with Jeffrey, and I got a theme somewhere around here. Do I have a theme? There's a theme. It's Would You Rather bot with Jeffrey. So every couple of hours or so, every 3 hours it looks like, they'll post a tweet. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to enlarge this. Anyways, because this is a neural network generating these questions. So would you rather yes or no? I would not find a bad answer. Or no, I would find a bad answer. Would you rather yes or no, I would not find a bad answer? Let me actually pull this up. There we go.
Yes.
I'm
gonna go with since we're.
Would you rather yes or no? I would not find a bad answer.
No.
No, I would not find a bad answer. Is that it? Your answer?
Sure.
Yeah. The question is the full part of no. I would not find a bad answer.
Okay. No, I would not find a bad answer.
And Gary, well, we can't see your camera, but I'm sure you're there. Would you rather yes or no? I would not find a bad answer. He's probably muted trying to figure out his technical issues. Well, let's find out what the votes were on the people who took this poll. 53% said yes, and 43% said no, I would not find a bad answer.
Okay. So
that
I'm
was
saying
that was the last one from 3 hours ago. So
my usual thing is if it's improv and we're kind of vamping, you always say yes. Like. So you kind of keep going because it keeps things going, it keeps things moving. Because once you say no, it's kind of a stop, and you're like,
So they were doing this same segment on Night Attack, and they had a question. They had one of the questions, and I don't know where it is on this list because this does it like every 3 hours or so. But the question was, would you rather kiss a bear or be chased by a bear, or be chased by a giant bear? Would you rather kiss a bear or be chased by a giant bear?
Mm-hmm. That is a hard question because, as always, what kind of bear?
This is the question. Would you rather kiss a bear?
Question.
Or would you rather be chased by a giant bear?
Well, I would rather kiss a bear, mostly because whether it's a bear like the actual animal or bear like the, gay community bear, either way, I'd rather kiss them than get chased by either one because I'm fat and my legs don't work sometimes. And I don't want to be that guy that trips and falls like every girl in the fucking movie, like, oh, and yeah, no. I mean, yes, if it were gay bear, I'm sure they would pick me up and we would have fun times, but I don't know if this is an actual bear or a bear. So let's just kiss them and be happy and be done with it.
I'm running. I'm running. One of us is going to get tired. If I'm too tired to care, it's going to eat me anyways.
Or eat you out. Depends on the bear.
Exactly. One of the two.
One of the two. Okay.
Wow.
All right. I think that might be enough vamping. Let's just go back to the regular show.
Hey. Yeah.
And so Gary's still dealing with his testicle difficulties, but let's do we get a Gary back? We got a Gary back. Maybe?
Nobody breathe or touch anything.
Okay.
Bunch of bullshit. Anyways.
So Gary, what are we talking about today?
I don't know what the fuck y'all were talking about while I was gone.
Well,
Something
we did the commercial, we did feedback, and then we were vamping a little to have you come back by doing a couple questions from Would You Rather Bot.
Oh, okay.
By the way, would you rather yes or no, I would not find a bad answer?
Those are the two choices.
It feels like a trick question.
It's a trick question, Yana.
It's a would you rather. So, I mean, technically, there's no wrong answer.
Well, because most people would be like, well, I'll just go look it up in Google, which is still kind of a wrong answer because it means you're relying on your answer from Google. Sorry, Google. I don't know.
Yes or no?
No,
What is it that
it's yes or no, I would not find a bad answer.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I would find a bad answer. Is that what it is? I
No,
don't know.
no, it's yes, ... or no, I would not find a bad answer.
What's the question?
That's the
Would
question.
you rather?
That's the problem.
Here, let me.
That's the fucking problem. It is
That's a
Let me see if I get the
question.
link. Here, copy link to tweet. I gotta put the link to the tweet in the chat.
Nope. He's not going to
Nope.
look at it.
I can't click anywhere. I can't
Oh,
touch
okay.
anything. I don't know why you fail to understand this.
I don't know.
That's just my computer system.
I actually think that was a great question. Anyways, Gary,
What?
we did feedback. We did Would You Rather, but what are we talking about today for our show topic?
So this is spawning off of our On the Road show from NAB 2018, where we went to Lexington, Kentucky. And Aaron, you don't know this, but Damon and I sat at the same table together on Saturday night as part 2 of the
Sunday.
contest went on.
Oh, Saturday night, yes.
And
Oh,
there was a whole table of us, and I unfortunately did not pack my fan for said contest because I'm gonna own that Damon and I did a lot of like leaning over Drew, who was sitting between the two of us for part of the time. He disappeared for a while. I don't know where she went, but then reappeared, and I warned him. I said, "You may not want to sit there because we being a little shady between us." And to clarify, for at least the first half of part 2, and the reason I'm calling it part 2 is because part 1 was on Friday. The first half of the contest on Saturday, David and I were not being shady about the contestants, for the record.
No.
There were some things later we were kind of questioning as to why people would make certain decisions, but so it got us talking and thinking about how contests are put together. Damon is known as like the Southern Ohio, Indiana, Northern Kentucky regions tallywhacker supreme. So he has
Thank you for using the right title.
He has background in adding up the points or the chits or whatever you want to call it, the numbers, to determine whatever the scale is that's being used for that thing. And so we kind of were talking about how, as people who are analytical and kind of driven that way, it's nothing against KBB and NAB, but it's a little challenging to try to follow a contest that's happening live and know what's taking place. And as we were discussing last week, an opinion was, well, it's up to the judges. Like, that's why there are judges. The judges ultimately make the decision. And I was like, well, if that's the case, then why the fuck have a public contest? Like, we're there observing it so we can see what goes down. So it's all on the up. But at the same time, I think how we react and respond to things is a piece of what makes a judge, like whether or not they think that something's part of it. So you would listen to the podcast and you were just basically like, hey, I have some information that might shine a little bit of light on this, and not just NAB, and we're not picking on North American Bear. There's a lot of contests that are out there, and they're all very different types, styles, formats. Some of them are very, I don't know how else to phrase it. I'll use this terminology, pageant driven. So it's very, for lack of a better reference, stand and model. So it's a lot about how you present yourself. Others are more skill based. And so we were having this discussion, and you had kind of offered up, and we were like, why don't we have a show and talk about competing for titles and how that kind of works? And they're all different kinds. I mean, it's one of the things is that we have different communities. So we've got pup, leather. I think kink is a little bit different than leather, in my opinion, but I could be wrong on that.
They're closer to leather and kink are closer together than kink and bear.
Yeah.
Right. So
that would be a great way to kind of put it.
Yeah. So all of these, I think, kind of work at it differently. And I know I will own that in my past, I criticized NAB a couple of years ago because it was a North American Bear title contest, yet the entire judging panel came from the leather community. And it wasn't that they didn't have crossover, but everyone was pretty much presented like this person, this person, this person. And it was all basically from their leather background. And I didn't raise a fuss about it, but I was kind of sitting in the audience going,
you wouldn't be the only one.
Where's the bear people? Like, but it brings up a good point about how who officiates, who decides, who is Mr. Bear or whatever. And I know this year the judging panel was a lot more representative, I think, of the bear community and past title holders, which now that they're done with 7 years, I think it is going on 8.
This is the 8th. Mm-hmm.
Right. You can actually start to
pull people back in.
Yeah, you can start reaping what you sowed all those years ago as titles and be like, okay, by the way, we may not have mentioned this, but one of your obligations in the future is to come back, and help, us determine the future title holder. So,
well, I will say that the judges actually apply to be a judge now.
Really?
So, yes, and then they are chosen out of all those applications.
Huh.
So,
color be surprised. I don't.
Yeah, that's new. That is not something I am familiar with most leather competitions. So usually with leather competitions, you get 9 times out of 10, one of the judges is the previous winner, like the one from just that year. Usually that's part of their requirement for getting back into the, not back into, but back, staying on the part of their contract that they sign is that they come back for the year to do their step down speech or step aside speech. And sometimes that means that they do have to judge. They don't always, and that's one thing, is they don't always judge, but most of the time they're a judge. And depending on how long the title's been going on, you could have like we said this year, they had a wealth of title holders from the previous years to pick from and draw from. But usually the judges are just sort of, I don't think it's necessarily, I mean, it is volunteer, quote unquote, but it is usually like the producer or the organizer or someone appointed in that organization contacts people to ask them to be judges, and then they either say yes or no, and then depending on that, that's who they surround themselves, and they get a number of judges depending on the criteria for the contest.
Right.
And I will own that I think contests have come a long way, probably in the past 5 to 10 years, only because I know for a long time locally here, and granted I haven't been to a contest in my hometown in a while, so this is speaking out of turn, but there was a lot of impropriety claims that like the bar owner was one of the judges where the contest was taking place. This person is a well-known local business person who is a sponsor of said event. And then, the rumor mill goes around that they've, slept with half the contestants or whatever.
Oh,
and so that when that stuff happens, I think it just, it cripples the whole concept of genuinely trying to give someone recognition for hard work done, because some of it is rumor mongering and that kind of shit. But at the same time, I'm like, that's kind of not cool. And, I recognize that everyone can tell me to just fuck off because I haven't really ever competed, and that's fine. But at the same time, as a person who watches what happens, it does become uncomfortable to start wondering, well, how did they determine that? Or where did this thing come from? And how does this take place? And as you heard in the podcast, we were talking about one of the things that Dave and I were completely lost on was one of the categories. It seemed so broad open in definition. It was just a little too wild in that I don't know how I would judge if I was a judge. You know what I mean?
And so you're actually referring to the fantasy wear/fantasy scene category. And in the application, it specifically says, it's up to your interpretation. You can get up there and do fantasy wear, or you can do a scene. Now, as a previous contestant, I have questioned it and have tried to get them to change it and make it a more standard category. But the judges are told that they need to judge each contestant on the same criteria. Now, a good judge will be able to look at, okay, was it a scene? How well was the scene put together? How well were the costumes? Did they interact correctly? If it was just an outfit, it's back to how well was the outfit done? Did it make sense? Did they wear it well?
Right.
So there's still sets of criteria that they can go on in both sets.
Right.
Okay.
And I think the one thing that doesn't happen at hardly any contest I've ever been to be honest, is they don't let the lay public know what is being defined as like permissible or acceptable or whatever. And I get that a lot of people probably think like, well, the audience doesn't give a shit. It's just a group of people in a bar, in a ballroom, whatever the case may be that the location is. But for those that take it seriously, you just want to make sure that like when other people start shit, you know, and kind of gossip or whatever, I would have no problem calling someone and being like, oh no, Miss Thing, here's a link. Go read the rules. Like it's all right there and you can go over it. But when that isn't there, it's easy to start speculating and kind of questioning. So like, well, wait, what is this category and how does this work and where does that come from? And like Chester mentioned, 2 of the contestants gave things to the judges as part of their whatever in the round. And immediately like the hair stood up on the back of my neck and I was like, what the fuck is that shit about? Like why are they gifting things to the judges? In my opinion, I'd be like, that's an absolutely no-go. Like you don't give them anything. Well, I appreciate it may be part of your fantasy. You do not feed them, you do not give them beverage, you do not promise them great sex later or whatever this, you know.
And unfortunately that's not a rule. There's no rule that says you can't do that. And the majority of contestants will do that at some point over the weekend.
Yeah.
So while you may not have seen it, while they may not have done it as part of their fantasy, they may have done it as part of their title wear, or they may have done it as part of their bar wear. At some point, the contestants may give the judges something.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and it seems
I realize it seems a little shady, but you know.
Well, for example, I'll just use a perfect example. I was doing a drag pageant contest kind of thing several years ago, and part of the theme was like freak show or whatever. So I came out and like I was the like poison ivy kind of thing. It was very flower based and whatever. And part of my walk around was I laid every judge. So I gave each one a lay. It was a cheap like 20-cent like flower lay that I just gave to each judge. None of like you said, none of the criteria said that I couldn't. There are obviously certain things you can't give them. Like I wouldn't give you a $20 bill, kind of thing. That would kind of be a little wrong. But like we saw them give cake in this, particular one and something else I can't remember. But I think as long as it's not monetary in value or over a certain amount, that's sort of the thing that you kind of have to be careful about in something like that. Like if a contestant as part of their fantasy where it was like a gold themed thing and they dropped down like a plastic gold card of who knows if there's anything on it. I don't know. But, if, that would be a little weird and wonky and that would be very gray. It could be nothing on it. It's just a gold card and they're just being funny. But if I were a audience member seeing said thing, I would kind of have a problem. Or if I were another contestant seeing said thing, I would be like, what's up with this?
So I will say that in the top 5 from this year, only 2 of the top 5 gave the judges something while competing on stage.
Yeah.
Now, I can't tell you that the other 3 didn't give them something, say an interview or privately. So,
right.
Well,
and that's one potential for NAB. For those that don't know, part of the judging is done anonymously. The first 24 hours or
the first night. Yeah.
So you're competing and you have no clue who the judges are. And that's part of the criteria is that you're supposed to be social and getting yourself out there and introducing yourself to lots of people, which is the night I think you, Aaron, and I actually talked and I said that I was kind of annoyed. Because to me, it was a little obvious that who was competing, like some people were just outright saying, oh, I'm competing. Other people weren't being quite so forthful, but because I was hanging out with a previous title holder, who happens to be one of my good friends, I found it a little grating because I could tell it's like they were hanging out with said person for whatever good juju it was going to give them.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's unnecessary. Like,
Well,
and so that's
in my opinion, but
so then that's part of the reason why the judges are kept secret for the first evening, because they want to see, do the contestants interact with everybody, or do they stay with the clique, or do they only hover around certain types of people? Will they actually interact with everybody who's at the event?
Right. Well, in said person, I even whispered in their ear. I was like, well, this is annoying because now I feel like they're just hanging around you because they think as a previous title holder, you have sway with the judges or are a judge. To which they turned to me and said, but joke's on them, I'm not a judge.
Right.
Which I was like, yeah, but still, like, that's like, my thing is, what's to say that you're not going to say something, though,
right,
to someone else like that? And that's, it's an imperfect system. No matter what, I don't think it can be accurately done because there's human beings involved. And that's part of the issue. Like, so for instance, the cake issue, like either all the contestants can give them things or they can't give them things. And in the case of cake, immediately I was like, so what if someone's gluten intolerant? Like, is that judge going to be fair and say, even though I'm not allowed to eat this or I should not eat this? Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's where I'm just kind of like, if you don't give them anything, you don't have to worry about that. But that's just my kind of weird like viewpoint on stuff. And so that's why I think it comes back to, if they would just, no matter what the contest is, no matter, I mean, I saw you in Kentucky at, was it Crossings, where you were helping kind of wrangle contestants. And
Daddy,
that's another case of, I just kind of wish they, if it was available, people could look at it. I recognize that probably 95 or 98% don't give a shit, but.
And I
could have been gluten-free cake.
It could have been, but anyway, I think it was available, and that's the part that I'm not 100% sure on, because I didn't look until the night of the contest.
So I can tell you up until they close the contestant application period, anybody can go on and look at the actual application and see what each category, what they're required to put in for those categories, and what they're going to be required to have for those categories, i.e. your title wear, your barware, your fantasy wear, your barware. Yeah.
So and I've seen that for many contests. So for those, most contests have a contested application of some kind, and sometimes they also include a handbook, a guidebook of what the contest will entail. What you're, as a contestant, you're kind of basically signing off on by becoming a contestant. You know, for example, if you are someone who is in the closet, guess what? You're going to be photographed like all over the place. And those photographs are going on our webpage, on our Facebook page, on, everything else. So if you're not comfortable with that, then maybe you don't become a contestant, because one of the things I remember we were having an issue with Tri-State was we ended up making a model application as part of the contestants application. It was essentially them saying, you are giving us the ability to take your picture and use it from now until
And you bring up an excellent point, Damon, because I know some bear contests where people do it on a whim, and I don't think it happens quite as often as it used to, like say a decade ago, where their friends are just like, oh, go on and do it, and it's a silly contest. And I say silly because it's not serious where someone's spending weeks or months or whatever preparing. It's literally kind of on the fly. So it's like best belly or best whatever, you know? And so they just get up there and they do it. But again, they don't realize like, oh, there's a little bit of officialness to this. And like, so you might get something for compensation. And then, they're going to want to take your picture and, start posting it all over the place. And you're just like, oh, I just came out to have a good time. Like, I wasn't planning on, like, becoming famous or whatever, or becoming everybody's spank bang, which is kind of one of the things I'm like, okay, well, you try to figure out where that is. And then there are other people who take it very seriously. And, like, AJ brought up an interesting point. He was like, if there is no limit to what a contestant can do within a category, what's permissible, so to speak, or not, then it really becomes about the haves and the have-nots, which has always been the case with any contest. people who have the resources have greater flexibility to achieve things. And that's one of the things that I find difficult in observing a contest, because sometimes it becomes a little obvious as to who had sponsors or backers or like a better reference, a contest sugar daddy or whatever. Patreon or a GoFundMe or whatever, that they drummed up some money. And over the past year, a handful of people have reached out to me and said, what do you think about this thing where title contestants or title holders of the current year are asking for money for them to be able to do stuff? Very black and white opinions about that issue on whether or not you should be asking other people for money, whether you're running for something or you've actually been awarded something.
So it's actually not unusual for a regional title that wants to go to an international or a national title to then do fundraisers. But there's a lot of times that fundraiser is going to be, say, I'm going to keep 60% for my run, but I'm also going to donate the other 40% to a local charity. So, or vice versa. I particularly didn't do that, but it was easier for me because I live here in Louisville and Lexington's an hour and 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't a huge chunk of change for me to travel here, but say AJ coming from Iowa, that's a 9-hour drive or a flight, and then they've got to pack everything they need and bring it with them. So it is a little harder. And going back to the fantasy scene, that's one of the things that I think is a kind of an issue for people who are traveling to Lexington to do the contest, because they don't have the resources that someone who's close enough could drive in order to make a fantasy fetish scene. So I have never been a fan of that category because it is not laid out very specific.
Yeah. And that may be something that we, us as we're talking on the show and, people who are in the audience and what have you can talk about. Because if you were confused because I was honestly confused, because it became, as Gary said, very broad in regards to what they were doing. And you had some people just standing and modeling. You had some people that were doing really elaborate things. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it was all very entertaining. But if I were, say, a judge, person A just walked on stage, person B did backflips. Like you have to, how do you judge that? And that was the confusing part for me. So if anyone else out there was kind of confused or concerned, maybe you can mention that when you send information back to the run, and that may prompt them to think about what they're doing. There's a lot of other issues too, but I will reserve that for later. But
so think about it this way. So in that section, as a judge, if you're a judge, contestant 1 comes up and does a full scene. You're judging them on that scene. So did their outfit make sense? Did the scene make sense to the outfit? Did they use the stage properly? Did they look nervous? So you're going to go through those same sets of questions for someone who just gets up there. Are they nervous? How does their costume look like they stapled it together at the last minute? Is it holding together? Are they using the stage? Are they nervous? So you still have some of the same criteria. Now, I get the fact that if you're doing a scene, sometimes, that person's up there for 5-6 minutes. So the judges have longer to look at them than someone who just gets up and stands and models or walks around. So,
and that may be something.
But I'm the kind of judge that the longer you're up there, the more I'm going to critique you.
And that could be something to think about too, or not to think about, to go on too, is to realize that more hands, quote unquote, kind of can split the focus. So like, for example, you have one person and that's them and they're doing really well. Because there was one guy who he was okay, but he used the entire stage, and it was just him, but he used the entire stage. Whereas you had someone who had maybe 2 or 3 people or 4 or 5 people or whatever, and it was very just in the middle and it was done. And, that's kind of, it kind of leaves a lot there, but you also, like I said, it splits focus because you're not just looking at the contestant, you might be, but you're now also looking at these other people and what they're doing.
So with that being said, so then that becomes an issue because you now are not judging the contestant, you're judging the entire scene, which is what you should be doing. You should judge the scene. If they have a scene, then you're judging the entire scene and not just the contestant, because the contestant was the one who put the scene together.
Yeah. And
that's a big presumption, Aaron. Sorry, Damon. To say that the contestant put the scene together, I can't agree with that because I know firsthand, not NAB, but other contests, other people put the scene together for said contestant. Contestant just executed it.
Okay, but that's still technically that's still their scene, so they put it together while they had assistants putting it together. It's their scene. They had to put it together and they had to execute it.
Like a fucking Broadway show producer. But
anyway.
Exactly.
Exactly. Script. There you go.
Step, kick, turn, step, kick.
Right. and that's one of the things, like, Damon, you and I talked briefly, I think it was you and I, after the titles were given out and everything on Saturday night at the after hours, we got a chance to talk to one of the title holders, or at least I did. Someone else was standing next to me. I don't know if it was you, Damon. And we kind of said, like, did you guys have any rehearsal time? Like, did you get a run through? Because said person, I'm not going to name any names, did a little bit of a gymnastic thing. And it was unexpected. I think it helped them win the title that they won. But I was like, basically, it's late at night. Some people have been drinking. I had not. I was like, girl, did you fucking practice that shit? Like, because that was a little scary and awesome at the same time. And they were like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, that's even more like a little risky in that you made the decision in the moment.
And that's one thing I will say that I've enjoyed about certain leather contests and pup contests and what have you, is there's usually a dress rehearsal. And I know it sounds like, why would you need a dress rehearsal? Well, when you're doing something like a scene, you need to know how long it takes you to get on stage, how long it takes you to take everything down, how, music, how loud does it need to be, how much space do I need to do A, B, and C? Like, for example, the guy doing the gymnastics thing, the stage is only so long and so big. You have to know how much room you have in order to determine what you can do. Because especially in a gymnastics thing, you could overturn or go too far or give too much energy to said like a flip or whatever, and you end up off stage and in the audience and what have you.
So I can tell you from last year, they did tell the contestants, if you have a fantasy scene and you would like to run through it on stage, you have that option. They will block out a section of time for you to come in the ballroom and do that. Now, if someone says they don't need the time, then that's them. That's them saying, I don't want to get up there and do it. I'll just do it when I do it.
Interesting. So again, I guess some people get up there and just, they don't have a plan. They wing it and do backflips and cartwheels.
Well, and to be fair, one of the title holders did say in a post on Facebook, I think, since winning their title, that they kind of like swung wildly in a moment on stage and felt that they were rewarded for that because they had been struggling with some stuff. And so they basically were like, fuck it. Like, I'm just gonna do it and we'll see how it plays out, because I think they kind of felt like they'd reached a breaking point of whether or not they were gonna really care. I don't know how to say it. Like, and I think in a way, my personal feeling, when I'm seeing it, or if I judge and someone kind of throws away that stress, basically, of whether or not you care that you win, it makes a world of difference, because you act differently, like you act differently, whatever that is.
Right. You loosen up on stage. You start showing your true self, and you're not as stiff, and you actually smile more, and it's not a forced.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Overall, like with any contest or competition, you're supposedly presenting your best self. And that's kind of the important thing. And the one thing we talked about earlier, the thing I like most about NAB specifically is that the contestants don't know who the judges are until the next day. Right. So you get that at least a day of or an evening of sometimes their real selves.
Right. You get a genuine view of how they are going to react in the community.
Yeah, and you're not getting that, because some people can put on a show very quickly and very easily.
Exactly.
And instead you're getting them interacting with people or not interacting with people. If they're a person that tends to be very lone, self-absorbed and snotty, you can kind of see. Sometimes you can see those things, and it doesn't take much. I know, and it's good in some ways. A lot of like leather and pup and whatever competitions tend to announce who the judges are beforehand, which is good in some ways. It's a good draw for some competitions, and sometimes it's a good just way to kind of put some of the contestants at ease. Because I know a lot of judges that will either after the competition, usually after a competition, like give a contestant their email address, their phone number to kind of say, if you want to talk about, your scores or how I, judged you, then we can talk about it. Because that's how people grow, especially in like leather competitions and pup competition, and maybe even bear and pageant competition. You may want to have that growth so that you can maybe next year, if you decide to do it again, you can go, oh, well, this is what I did wrong, and this is what the judge saw me. Let me do certain things differently or figure out how to change that up so that I don't end up making an ass of myself.
So a couple of points to what you have to say there. I prefer not knowing who the judges are because I have set in as a tally master on some of the interviews, and when the contestants already know who the judges are, and you get judges that have written like 4 books, and they start asking you questions about, well, did you read my book? And in this chapter, under this section, tell me what you thought of that. Yeah. And I'm like, I would rather not know who you are. Yes.
Wait a minute. This is an interview for a title. This isn't a fucking PhD dissertation. What is that shit?
As I've heard it.
You would be surprised.
Oh.
You would be surprised the things that people in interviews, the things that people will ask, because it is essentially you and the judges. And tally master is sometimes producer, whatever. But it's you and the judges kind of having a conversation, like a job interview, only about 10. I would say 5-10 times like more intimate and crucial. Because it's a lot of like.
And that's the thing. So you know who the judges are ahead of time. So they want to know, did you research who we are? Because those judges are usually people. They're usually pillars of the community. They want to know, do you know who they are and what they stand for, and where do you fall in line with how they see the leather community and the title you're running for.
And I see that look on your face, Gary, and I know what you're thinking, and I get it. It's not something you would think about, but it is a weird, like, honestly, if you were a good, like, knowledge education contestant, you would want to know a little bit about, like, if you were going for a job interview, you'd want to know a little bit more about the company that you're going to do an interview for. So you're not, and the same kind of goes for your judges. And I know it sounds crazy, and I admit it is fucking crazy in some situations. The whole book thing is bullshit to me. I'll just say that right now.
Well,
that's crap right there.
But I'm like, that's reason 362 why I do not put myself in contest, because I'm like, this isn't about you. This is about me. So you as a judge, you do not need to be uplifted or your self-worth like measured by my knowledge of you. That's my personal opinion on it. I get that having some background information is one thing, but I'm just picking on what you said, Aaron, where this person was like, did you know this one thing and blah blah. I'd be like, no, like that's kind of not important, because the reality I would say then is, how likely is that one nugget going to be utilized in the coming year for said title holder?
Right.
It's different. Right. I mean, it could be specific for a title. in which skill and knowledge are being brought together in a very specific way. And I don't even know if this thing exists, like if there's like a Mr. International flogging sir. But yeah, like that's about technique and a very specific. Right. But outside of that, I'm like, and that's where I guess I'm highly critical, because I own that I come from the background in the bear community. I came from a club who put on an unrun, basically, and did untitles on purpose, because back in the 90s going into the early aughts, we basically kind of made fun of the fact that there was, these, Mr. Bear titles or whatever, because it was like, for what reason? The concept of the community is not about putting one above all. It's about accepting everyone. So where does that come from? And that's why I didn't care about going to NAB the first 2 years, because I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I have no interest in going to a run for the bear community that's trying to make an international title scene. But a great many people I knew were going. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a chance. And I see what's happening, but I'm proud to say that most of the title holders that I know of for NAB actually are good, genuine, caring people who are trying to do well in their own communities and what they're looking to put out there. Right. And, Wesley was the one that really impressed me, because he was, I think, the first that I saw that had won and came back. And I had been following him on Facebook and saw all the miles that he put in, all the shit that he did. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, like, this isn't just I'm pretty, look at me, I matter more than the rest of you kind of, concept, which I've seen happen far too often, I think, in other arenas.
Yeah.
Which is really sad, because the second NAB was Curtis Bass, and he did a lot of traveling and getting the name out there, and so he was right before Rex, and he did a lot for the event. And so I will tell you that NAB was started shortly after IBR, International Bear Rendezvous, went kaputs, and some of its rules and its competition actually come from the way IBR was done. IBR did the same thing with the judges, where you didn't know who they were until Saturday morning at your interview. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, and that's one of the things that I think Damon and I, we kind of talked about. Like, we have some ideas on ways that NAB specifically, we're not trying to beat up on NAB, but that's the most relevant thing of recent. It was like, they could maybe consider this, and this would be another idea of something to do. But I also recognize that, because I've kind of talked to Adam, the KBB, Kentucky Bourbon Bears, is the proprietor, sponsor, producer of NAB and the titles, and therefore they as an entity kind of make those decisions. And so, you could have a laundry list of 17 things that you think are ways that could be improved, and they might say, we like 3 of them. And
right.
And that's unfortunate that it might go that way, because to me, if that's what happens, then the organization is the one that gets that notoriety for whichever way they decide to handle things. And I'm not trying to beat up on KBB. It's just, I've explained that, and Adam kind of knows, I said, any event that they are, the organizing committee or the people, the staff, are answerable to something else, that becomes challenging, because you have a whole invested interest of individuals that are making decisions about what gets executed.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether or not they actually put in effort, so to speak.
And that's one of the things that can often be good and bad in some ways in regards to a contest, is the feedback that they get. Certain contests, like, since NAB is part of a run, they can get feedback because they're usually asking for it as part of their, end of the run survey kind of thing. Right. Contests don't always do that. Certain contests, especially letter contests or whatever, they don't normally get quote unquote feedback. They don't ask for the feedback. Let's rephrase. Sometimes they will get the feedback, but it'll be through, Facebook posts and Twitter and social media and all that stuff. And they'll sometimes get things like, I didn't really like the contest this year because the bar was loud and the contestants all sucked. And I mean, I'm just spitballing things here, but there are things and sometimes it would be great to get some feedback from the audience in some ways for certain contests, because a lot of contests kind of rehash and repeat the same things over and over and over and over and over again. But that's because that's what they know works.
And remember, most leather contests are not runs. It's not a weekend event.
Exactly.
You get a quick meet and greet, and then the contest, and then bam, you're done.
Yeah.
And that's one of the unique things I think about NAB is that it happens over multiple nights or multiple days. The run starts on Thursday. Technically, I believe the contest starts on Friday, but I don't think it's fair to say that the contest starts on Friday, because in my opinion, that is not true.
Yeah.
If I'm a judge,
I can disagree. The judges are judging.
If I'm a judge and I'm there on Thursday and shenanigans goes down in front of me, if you expect me to disregard that until Friday when the contest begins at noon or 4 or whatever they say, I'm sorry. Like, your behavior was noticed, like, or witnessed, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
That can kind of, be a piece of it. So, but
as a contestant,
or not,
right? Well, in the application it says it starts on Friday, but if you're going to arrive on Thursday as a contestant, you should know to be on.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
like, I know it sounds crazy, but like, that's the thing. Like, if you don't, like, especially if you don't know who the judges are, like, that's the big thing for me. Like, if you don't know who the judges are, like, I'm not saying like you're going to be like fake and whatever, but like, keep certain things to yourself, or keep certain things like to a room or whatever. Like, I would, but again, since we're kind of talking about contests in general as well, some contests, it's very important to know what the contest is all about, and it's as a contestant or as a judge or as even an audience member, it's always good, I think, to have some knowledge. And that was part of my overall issue with NAB, was that we were having things going on in front of us, and we weren't sure why they were going on and why certain things were done in certain ways.
So I will back up for you there just for a second. Now, I was not in theater Friday night, so I only saw bits and pieces of it. But typically, before every category, the MC is scripted to tell you about that category. True. They may run through it really fast, and then nobody can hear it because the sound is wonky, or everybody's talking at the table, or everybody's drinking. But usually, they will tell you what the category is and what the broad instructions are for the category itself.
Yeah, and maybe that's something we may have missed, our MC at the competition this weekend. That weekend may have gone through very quickly. I know they were running long on time, so there's a possibility that he either skipped it or he went through really quickly and we just didn't catch it. There were 17 contestants for this contest.
Right. Exactly.
That's a lot of people to go through.
And believe it or not the highest count on contestants.
I know. I'm aware. I've anyway, but and that's true with any kind of competition and contest. I've been to I've tallied several with the Ohio Valley Regional and OLA, and they usually give a bit of, their MC gives a little bit of what's going on, which is beneficial. Now, again, as we said, sometimes you don't hear said thing because sometimes the competitions are at a bar and everyone's talking and drinking and what have you. Or I could see it. I've not seen a lot of. I have seen some drag pageants. I've seen Miss Cabaret a couple of times, and they do kind of give a little bit. It's meant to not necessarily give all the criteria, but this is fantasy wear. Fantasy wear is this, and the contestants are given, crepe paper to make something, and this is what they're going to do. Like whatever it is. It's just sort of meant to be brief, to give a general quick synopsis of what's going on, and then the contestants come on. I think maybe that was missed, or not. We weren't informed in NAB, which is where the confusion kind of came from. Pub contests that I've been to I had one where they were doing essentially an obstacle course as part of the scene of it. And, that makes sense to me. And I'm glad that they told me what they were doing. I didn't see any of it basically because they had the stage and it was over in another area. And everyone kind of went over there, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go over there because everyone's over there and it's going to get crowded. It's a smaller area, so whatever. But I knew it was supposedly going on, and I could hear the MC kind of going through things as they were talking about it. But, you know, again, therein lies for me, the issue of, or question of, how much information do the contestants get beforehand? Because, for example, that pup example is a good example for me, because as a pup, I don't have a handler, you know, owner, what have you. So if I'm going to compete in this competition, I'm going to see that I'm going to need someone to assist me.
Right. And so, especially for NAB, the categories are broken down and they tell you exactly what the category is. Now, when I say the word exactly, the fantasy wear, fantasy scene is the only one that's, I won't say left up to interpretation, but it's left up to the contestant to decide how they want to do that particular category. Right. But all the others are very specific.
And I think, you know, there's just a lot of unknowns that is really can be difficult for people who are just lay observers to what's happening. And so when it comes to any title, it doesn't matter what the community is. I think, and I've been an advocate of this for years, and it's one of the things, like locally in the drag community, there's been, like, you know, questions of impropriety and, you know, this and that. That's kind of where I was talking about, like, you know, oh, this one slept with so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. And this one used to work for them. And, you know, and when that stuff comes up, like, that's where I've just kind of taken the stance of it should be as transparent as possible, as open and honest. And, like, Damon, do you remember in the past year of recording the podcast, we had a really brief discussion about an oddity that there was a title contest that, like, I think it was 6 to 8 weeks after the event was over, you could travel to go witness in person your scores and ask any questions at that time. And I remember you were kind of like, what the hell is that about? Like, because even you thought that was a little odd. And I was like, well, I guess that's how they run that thing. But to me, I'd be like, why is it so secretive? And what's with the delay thing? Like, I'm all about, like, just put it online. Like, just post it. Let everybody see where it comes out at. And I get that some things might be kind of personal as far as feedback or whatever, or criticism, and that may not be cool. But I'm like, yeah, but you, no offense, you ran for a title. Like, to be public. And so
so something I've learned or have realized as a talent master has been, it's always been interesting. So I get to see all the numbers, and sometimes, depending on, you know, how long things are going, I'll sometimes read, like, the judges' comments and stuff, and seeing, because I'm seeing where they're going with their, you know, like, I try not to do it because what I don't want to do as a tally master who may at some point in the evening of a contest run into contestants, I don't want to give away something, like, you know, because there could be a contestant that is doing really fucking well, and I could be running into his competitor, and I could kind of I could potentially give the, like, you're really not doing that good. So, so I try not to, like, I try to keep the numbers in the computer or whatever that I'm doing at. On the flip of that, not the flip of that, but on the other end of that is at the end of the contest, sometimes I've been told you can give all the tally sheets to the contestant, and that's your job. At the end of the once all the numbers are in and they've crowned a winner, as it were, you can just hand them all the judges' sheets and be done with it. I have seen competitions do that, and I have seen some competitions that don't. Now let me continue. I see Aaron, like, shaking his head on, yeah. So, sometimes that happens, and sometimes it doesn't. So there are also competitions where I have, or the producer has asked me to type up the comments that are written down, and then get it all together, and then get it to the contestants. Mainly, the main reason being, usually, the contestants don't know who the judges are. I mean, they know who the judges are, but they don't know their number. So they'll get their scores, and judge number one has given them their scores and their comments, but they don't necessarily know who judge number one is. Sometimes. And the reason for that is that they don't necessarily want them to know who was judging them or who was not necessarily who was giving them like potentially low, really bad scores, or who was doing this and that. Sometimes you want to know and sometimes you don't. It's always been confusing and interesting to me because I think in order for a contestant to grow and move on and whatever is to potentially get the feedback and the critiques from the judges, because you're not going to get it, at that moment on stage unless you intentionally seek it out.
Right.
But the whole, like, sometimes secrecy can be a good thing and a bad thing. I get why some contests want to keep things under wraps because they don't want too much getting out. If you have a judge has a vendetta,
right,
against the contest and was intentionally doing things, you may not want to give the contestants that judge's scores. I'm using that as an example. I'm not saying that's ever happened. Probably has, but you don't want the contestant to kind of see that and be like, "What the fuck?" You can go, "Well, this is why we're going to have this conversation. Me, the producer, you, the contestant, because you need to what I know now that we're a few weeks away from the contest."
I will say this year NAB did something different that I really liked the fact that they did it. They used an alternate judge. And so while there were some conflicts of interest between judges and some of the contestants, they did use alternating judges for those conflicts. So this is the first year they've done that, and I like the fact that they've done that.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, when that was explained, it wasn't clear.
Yeah.
It wasn't clear as mud, but it also wasn't clear like water. I was like, what?
Like, I think they were trying to explain that they were using an alternate judge and not say why they were using an alternate judge. Yeah. Right, because they didn't want to single out any contestant to say, well, we're using this judge because this contestant, and then we're using this judge because of these contestants. So,
but to be fair, like, I thought that was an interesting element this year that they explained. Just so everybody knows, we had, I think it was 1 or 2 alternate judges on retainer in the event that something came up, which did, that there was, we wanted to avoid this collusion or whatever you want to call it kind of situation. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So we can equally say we've done our best to avoid whatever this is, which, I mean, that's what I recognize, because you can put all the rules in place. You can post them online. You can, talk about it the whole way through. It's still not necessarily going to be 100% foolproof in what you're trying to achieve. But I think slowly over the past 7 years, NAB in particular has been making some headway. I'm curious though, Aaron, because you spent a year with your title and you traveled around and went to different events, and I imagine some of them were judging or assisting it where there was title competition going on.
Right.
In your experience of that year, did you see or observe or find anything like unique or different, or was it pretty traditional from like competition to competition that they kind of, I don't want to say blend together, but it was like, well, all right, you're running around in your underwear, or,
Right. Yeah.
Let me guess, you're selling raffle tickets. How novel.
Exactly. No, they've all been pretty standard. Everything that I've run across. They've all been just raffle tickets and 50/50s and how far down can you get without being illegal and clothing and so.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And that's the thing. One of the things I like or dislike. Yes, you could have criteria for certain things, but other than that, it's kind of free reign. So, for example, selling raffle tickets can be a pretty boring thing. To be blunt and honest, you can pedal whatever, but you can kind of do it. But one of the things I will say, there are 2 things. There's one thing I enjoyed and another thing I didn't. The there are certain ways to sell raffle tickets and be funny / kinky / sexy without like going overboard. And that's sort of the problem I had. So I had one, like you had contestants that were pretty much walking around with not much on, and they're selling the raffle tickets. If that's the choice you make, that's the choice you make. You have some, contestants who will pretty much almost literally bend over backwards to sell you some tickets. They'll perform for you so that they can get get you to buy a ticket. And sometimes that performance includes like we're doing a crotch to floor or whatever, or boots to balls or whatever you want to call it, and they get a little handsy and mouthy and what have you. And sometimes, if depending on the person, that's cool, whatever. My problem is when you take it a little too far to where you're making people uncomfortable. Like every person is different. You don't know who you're encountering. You don't know their story. But if you come up to them and you're like all touchy-feely and grabby and gropey and they don't want that, guess what's not going to happen? You're probably not going to sell that ticket. And they're probably going to be totally closed off from you and maybe not buy tickets from anyone else because they don't want to have that encounter. So always be fluid with regards to what you're doing, because it will potentially affect what happens with you. I'm going to use Paul as an example. Paul, I didn't buy tickets from him, but apparently there's a point in time in the point of the contest, he was selling or giving Girl Scout cookies away with his raffle tickets. Now, was that in the rules? No. That was something he intentionally did. And is it fair?
Yep.
Yeah. It was in the rules. You could do whatever you want. Now, I'm not saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know. I think where you're going with this, Damon, is like, okay, so he didn't sell sex to get money for raffle tickets, but he sold Girl Scout cookies, which in some people's opinions is just as equal. It's not my opinion, but I mean,
technically, he did not sell the cookies. He gave you cookies if you bought tickets. You were buying the tickets for the raffle.
Yeah.
You just got extra from Paul if you bought the tickets from him.
Yeah. And I thought it was ingenious. It was a perfect idea. Perfect idea. And I know.
Yeah, but I'm thinking if I wanted 40 tickets, that's $40 for a box of $5 cookies.
But it's for the children. I mean, come on. It's
children.
The $5 was for the children's too.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But like I said, it was a very interesting, ingenious way to kind of draw. He was at a bear run. He knew his audience, and he kind of went with it. And it was a really, really great idea. On the side of that, you had some people that were very, very, very overtly sexual with regards to the tickets. I understand that this is a bear run or this is a leather contest and sex is kind of part for the course. But there comes a point where, like I was saying, where you get to a point where I'm no longer intrigued. I'm now uncomfortable. And that was turned off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't really interested to begin with, and now you've kind of proven my point.
Well, and to me, that's about readability. And that's a skill that I could probably work with somebody who wanted to be a contestant and talk to them about how to read a room, how to read a person, to look for nonverbals, to figure that stuff out. Because I know there was one contestant in particular that I was not jiving with no matter what. It's just our personalities were very oil and water. And I saw a lot of their personality being expressed as a insecurity. They will probably debate till their very last breath about this, but that's fine. It's my perspective on it. But it was unfortunate because I was like, wow, you were trying so hard to sell tickets. Like, and that's the uncomfortability factor is like, I don't think you realize I wasn't interested. I'm definitely not interested. I am hell no not interested now. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it gets progressive in this weird thing. But to me, the raffle, the fundraising thing is about selling. It's sales. And as someone who has taught it in the past, it's a different form. It's a different type, but it's still the same thing, which is, are you able to understand your audience? Are you able to communicate benefits to them? Are they going to understand and agree with you on why they should do this transaction, basically? Will it work in your favor that you're more approachable? Absolutely. Will it work in your favor more if the person already knows you? Hell yes. But you're at an event with like NAB as an example, because we keep using it. There's over 1,000 people there. So you can't be that damn popular. I'm sorry. Like,
well, and that's
and
like in judging, that's one of the things they're looking for. They're looking for, are you actually interacting with all of the attendees, or as many as you can, or are you sticking with your clique, or are you sticking with certain types of people? So
and that's that's something, that's criteria. So, and that's part of and depending on, again, we're talking about contests and whatnot. That also depends on the criteria of the contest. A lot of contests, especially kinky titles, part of your contest is fundraising.
Right.
Some contests have you make a basket and it's meant to express you, and sometimes you get donations from people, and it's kind of a way to raise money. Usually for some it's a raise money for your travel fund, or it's to raise money for the event or whatever. But again, if you are not really great at interacting and socializing and whatnot with people, it'll reflect in a lot of the things that you do.
And honestly, why are you running for a public title? Because you're gonna be dealing with the public a whole lot.
But that kind of circles back to the whole thing about, like, should you already have money in your coffer, so to speak, before you even begin to enter a contest or not? And I don't think we're going to resolve that in this discussion. That's not the point. I get the debate, which is, if you're going to run for a title, you should expect that you're going to have to spend some money. And if you ain't got no money, you better figure out a way to get some money. And yes, it's more favorable to go to people who, have money or whatever. I mean, as an example, and we haven't really brought it in, but like the Imperial Court, I know a handful of people that are involved with it now or were in the past. And from what I saw observing remotely a particular court and people going for, the Emperor and Empress titles, in the end, I was like, my God, this is a second job. Like, you bust your ass to be able to win or to be titled or crowned, and then you got to spend a whole motherfucking year doing nothing but raising money for whatever your thing is, and then you still have to do more stuff when you finish and then step aside or whatever. And I'm like, God bless those people. But in a lot of ways, many titles I think are similar to that.
Yeah, and some court systems actually have a travel fund that help you as an emperor and empress during the year travel to other coronations and do other fundraising. So.
And that's the thing.
Not all of
them. Chuck has been in our live fight, and I'm going back a little bit because I remember him saying this. If I won a title of any sort, I would have to raise money somehow to afford to do some of the other things I would need to do. Being a title holder can be very expensive, and I don't think people realize it. That is 100% accurate.
Yes.
A lot of people.
I have spent a lot of money over my year, and I've burned through a lot of PTO. But I never did a fundraiser to do anything for my travel. Everything I did was I assisted someone else raising money for their charities, or in the case of my step down for Mr. Gem City Bear, I assisted in raising funds for that particular.
And that's one of the things that I think people don't necessarily recognize. Like, so as a person who puts on an event, I've been approached over the past couple of years, and I think it's sort of correlated or connected to going to NAB, people asking about title holders, asking about coming to the event and that kind of stuff. And that's fine. It wasn't something we had planned on in the past because we weren't really considering ourselves a part of that subset, I guess, of the community or whatever, because we don't have contests. In fact, we purposefully don't, because our whole thing is like, it's just kind of like a spring break weekend. It's not any of that. But there is something that comes from having people attend your event that have been given titles because they have already kind of shown in a certain point, or have been given that for recognition of the work that they put in and that they do. And so, people ask about, is it appropriate for them to be compensated for their time and their effort? And I think it's kind of a very mixed situation, because not everyone is in a beneficial state where they don't need to raise any money because of whatever their job or, their situation is. And then others can't really do much of anything. And the one thing I kind of like that has occurred over the past couple of years, most bear contests appear to come across to me as, when you get the title, it's made clear from the get-go, here's what your requirements are. In the coming year, you are expected to A, B, C, D, or whatever it is. If you have any money allotted to you, here is what it is. Like, you get a compensation of a run pass or some gas money or whatever, or you get nothing. Like you get a title, you might get a pin, you might get a patch, you might get a sash, you might get a piece of paper. Who knows what the operating budget is for the thing. But, and then a lot of the times what I hear, though, is outside of those initial requirements, whatever you do is totally on you. And that's the part that I like the most, is that people are allowed to kind of manufacture and do whatever it is that they want. Yeah. And that allows for people to be impressed later by what is achieved during the course of that year.
Right.
Or whatever the length of time that the title is, I guess.
So I will say that in my first title, I was Mr. Kentucky Bourbon Bear 2011. And so with that title, you got a patch, but you also got money towards a new leather vest. And that was it. So I traveled to several different bear contests under that title. With Gem City Bear, I got a kilt from Kilted Brothers or Kilted Bros. I forget what their name is now. A sash and a patch and a little basket of things. But written into the contract for that contest was that I would come back to their Pride, the Dayton Pride, and I would come back to judge the next year's contest. And that I would show the title in good light. Now, North American Bear, I could have done nothing. Absolutely nothing. I had no roles other than show the title in good light. And if you can come back the next year, come back the next year. When it came to the Bear title for NAB, he did get a little travel fund, and his requirements were to show it in good light and to come back for his step down. We all five of us did get run packages for free for the following year to come back, but that's it. So I will tell you that I went into NAB under the guise that it didn't matter which title I won. If I won Bear, great. If I won one of the top 5, great. But I said to myself that I'm going to treat, if I win a title, I'm going to treat it like I won the main Bear title, and I'm still going to promote the contest, and I'm going to promote the weekend and pretend like I won. I won that main title.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say, go ahead, Damon.
No. You're probably going to say what I'm about to say. Go ahead.
Well, NAB is a little unique, and most titles that I've seen are kind of solitary. Like there's maybe 1 or 2 titles.
Right.
There's kind of like a bear and a cub or, there's kind of this duality if there is anything, or just the one. Mm-hmm. But NAB specifically has expanded to 5 titles. And this year, AJ, who is stepping down or stepping aside, whichever you prefer to say, what made a big point of having all of you up on stage when he was giving his speech, and really was focused on, we collectively are a group of individuals. We are 5 title holders who did a lot during the year. Mm-hmm. And while I am, quote unquote, the Bear title holder, the top of the pack or whatever you want to say, he really kind of eschewed this whole notion of I'm more important than anybody else. Like, we equally busted our ass over the past year to try to do whatever it is that we could in the course of that time. And I thought that was really admirable that he wanted to make sure that everybody knew, like, yeah, so just because I have this one title and they have different titles doesn't mean that we're any different in terms of who we are. And it was the first time I kind of heard, which I really liked, but I don't expect it every year, this whole concept of like brotherhood, as a group of individuals, because like you just said, you have no commitments.
Right.
Like you're in it and you got a thing and that you could do nothing for 360 some days or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we really tried to stay together and get the titles out there, and we wanted to show the community that we were doing more with it than just put it on a vest and say, "This is me."
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing that I was going to say is that a lot of times that part of the criteria is in the contract that you sign. So whatever contract you're doing, that's what you get. And sometimes that's it. And if you want to do the bare minimum and do just that, then so be it. That's your right as a title holder to do. You can just do that. Now, one of the things I have liked about NAB and other contests that I've been a part of is that sometimes the winners usually the winners will go above and beyond that. And that's part of them as a person. Not necessarily them as a competitor, it's them as a person. Each year with NAB, for example, I have seen the title holders get more and more active and involved and engaged. And I've had people tell me, it's just another fucking bear contest. No, it's not. This isn't just another fucking bear contest. This isn't just another because a lot of the issue that a lot of bear titles get is that you get the title and then that's it. Very little happens, very little goes on, and then the next year you pass it on to the next person and they do the exact same thing. This title in particular has been very active and open about what they're doing. They're not just, and yes, I'm following people, and I would love to follow Panda and the winners of this year to kind of see what they do, because, but I can see that it can be a really great thing, and I think it's going to keep going every year. This isn't just a bar title where all you have to do is support the bar. This is now kind of a national, international title, and there should be some kind of ability to it. Yes, the winner probably has to do more, quote unquote, say, than the other title holders, but that doesn't mean that they won't.
Right.
It's up to them. And maybe someone doesn't, but again, as long as they do the minimum of the contest requirements, that is all that they should do. Right. If people do more, that's their prerogative to do so. And that's the thing I think most people don't get. A competition usually, like I said, has something in their contract that says you're supposed to do A, B, and C. If you don't do A, B, and C, that's why your title is taken away.
Right.
Or if you one of the things you kept saying was the title's supposed to be you're going to be show the competition or the weekend in a good light, in a positive light. Okay, well, if you take your title vest and show a video of you jerking all over it, that may not be the best thing in the world to do. So, not necessarily a positive light. So, stop it.
But I got a question. But what if you do it as a video that's behind a paywall as a travel fund? Is it still not in a good light? I mean, because you can OxyClean it, right? I mean,
no comment. No comment. But
sure,
no, but like I mean,
that,
like,
but yeah,
but that's what I mean, you can do, as long as you don't do bullshit like that, then you're fine. But the thing that I get tired of is people looking at title holders as this leader / God almost in a lot of ways, and they can't do anything wrong, and they have to be perfect and pretty and whatever. And I'm like, girl, no, they're still human beings. They still have lives. I know of competitors of other competitions I've watched in the past where life suddenly, unexpectedly changed for them.
Yeah. And
they pretty much couldn't do a lot of traveling because they had to stay close to home.
Right.
If something like that happens, they have no control over that. they have to stay close. I get that they have obligations and they may have to, but as long as they're staying within the guidelines or whatever of their contract, or in certain situations, they tell their producers, hey, this is what happened to me. I'm not going to be able to do all this stuff, but I can do what I can. Right. Are you okay with me keeping the title? If the producers are okay with you keeping the title, then you can keep the fucking title. Right. So it's just one of the things I've always harped on is that you always should, especially lay people, whatever, who aren't in the contest realm or contestant or whatever realm, should always look at certain things and before they speak, take a moment to not let the drama hit you, and then take a moment to see and maybe talk to the contestant or the winner before you run to conclusions and jump on Facebook and girl, did you see that contestant doing oh my God, look what they were fucking doing. Yeah, I hate that so fucking much.
Well, and it's interesting because sometimes I think alternatives are the best option when things cannot be executed as expected. So like I was never really a fan of the whole like raffle ticket selling thing, but I get it because it's an element of showing like, are you going to be able to make money for charities, or are you going to, be able to kind of make money for yourself if necessary to travel or whatever. What I like though is I think there's more. I like things that are a little more original. Like someone had approached me and said they think that contests could add a nice element to provide options. So for example, when it comes to selling 50-50 raffle tickets, it could be, well, instead of 50-50 raffle for money or whatever, it could be, actually, I worked really hard and I put together this basket, which has like, a $600 value or whatever it is. And it has all these great things in it. Type situation. I'm like, well, that's a little different. It's still the same thing. You're still fundraising. You're still trying to, get an exchange of, finances basically for the purpose of, whatever it is, be it travel or, charity and that kind of stuff. That stuff to me speaks a little bit more. And it's funny because as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, what do I do at my event? At 50-50. But I think it kind of, in a way, it's weird because it goes with the territory. I think that's the one aspect of it. I find interesting that people are trying to be original, but work within the confines of whatever the system is.
I will say that when it comes to selling raffle tickets, especially on the contestant side, it is a little easier to say 50-50. I'm going to sell you a ticket for 50-50 because I will tell you, right, as a judge, when I go to other events, if a contestant approaches me to sell me tickets, I want to know what the ticket's for. And I'm going to ask them, and I'm going to see, I already know what the ticket sales are for, but I want to know, can they tell me what the ticket sales are for? Now, if it's a 50-50, it's easy for them to say, 50-50. But if it's, a basket, oh, well, what's in the basket? Right. Or, it's a trip. Oh, well, what are the requirements for the trip? Where do I fly out of somewhere? Yeah. So for me as a judge, I look at 50-50 sales that way, but I'm also going to ask them a follow-up question. I'm going to say, oh, it's 50-50. Well, what's the other 50% going to? Is it going to a charity? What can you tell me about that charity?
Right.
So I want to know that you're invested in the community,
right?
Enough to be able to tell me, what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
Right. So kind of as a sort of a recap, because we talked about a lot of different things and we had some areas that we wanted to hit in terms of the topic, but I think we covered all of them in various ways. There are all sorts of different titles and contests that exist. Each community kind of has its own version. Mm-hmm. What it comes down to is the community is choosing a person to represent them in some fashion.
Right.
And there will be some set of requirements that'll be put out there. In most cases, there's an application, but the application is usually posted at up to a certain point. And then, in my opinion, unfortunately, it's taken down, which I get because now they're not accepting them anymore. But then what you're lacking is for people to know, oh, this is the stuff that they're going to be working towards. That being said, one when you have the contest, that application, all that stuff will kind of spell out what your different areas are. I want to call them rounds, but they're categories, I guess.
Categories.
Yeah, as to what you're going to be working towards, what that particular item is, whether or not there are any limitations on that. Like, that's one of the things that I kind of wonder about. Like, in my personal opinion, I think there should be times put on stuff. Like, you know,
And
like if you're just
there is.
right, like if you're just going to do a stand-in model kind of thing, which to me is like you're just showing what you have. Like, so you get up there, like you have, you know, barware or whatever, and you go up. It's like, okay, you get 2 minutes, you get to stand, walk back and forth, work the runway girl, whatever, you know, and then you leave. But if there's like a talent aspect to something, then there should be a limitation, because to me, it's very unfair to be like, all right, this person took 3 minutes and this person has a 9-minute mega mix of shit,
Right.
you know, where you're like, really, girl, come on. You know, and so that the type of stuff I hope is some way kind of spelled out, but everything's a learning curve. Like, that's the one thing about NAB I know over the years, I think, and I know we kind of harp on it, but we just went to it, and no offense, you're a title holder, Aaron. So that's where a lot of the expertise comes from, but I know they've been working towards trying to make things better. And the one key critical thing we didn't mention that I wanted to touch on this year was that the raffle was not a significant component of the competition, which I found really interesting. When they made that announcement, I was shocked, because I told one of the contestants earlier in the weekend when they were talking about selling raffle tickets, the way they kind of phrased it, and this isn't anything against them, they weren't diminishing selling raffle tickets, but the way they were talking about it, they weren't really putting a heavy focus on it. And I was like, you might want to be, you know, a little more whatever. But I think they already knew the rules, and it wasn't until it was announced Saturday where I think Scott or the MC said, this is only going to be used as a tiebreaker. And I was like, what? I was like, oh shit, like that really changes things up, because people busting their ass for so much monetary like input, I can see as a criticism of swaying like judging, because how fair is it if contestant 3 gets $1,000 because someone just wrote them a check for $250?
So I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you really quick, because I'll tell you, the judges do not know the ticket sales aspect of it. They're only judging the contestants based on their interactions. So they don't know the count. They don't know the monetary count. They don't know any of that. Whenever the totals are tallied all up, they don't know who has the extra point. And I think he mentioned it incorrectly this year. This is not the first year that the extra point has been awarded. The deal is it's only used in the event of a tie. It's not actually given to the contestant. If that contestant happened to tie in the top 5 with another contestant, then they would get the extra point. Now, the one thing that they've done different this year than any other year is they actually have given the person who gets the highest ticket sales something for doing that. So last year, the guy who sold the most tickets didn't get anything for it. He didn't need the point for the tie, for a tiebreaker, and he didn't get anything else. While this year, Paul, who sold the most, actually got a run pass for next year.
Right.
So that is the new aspect to the ticket sales.
Yeah, and it's interesting if this isn't the first year that they use it as a tiebreaker aspect, because I wasn't aware of that previously. My understanding was a portion of how you competed for the weekend was based on how much money you raised. And I know that some people kind of called shenanigans on that, because they're like, well, that's not very cool, because that's an aspect of who's willing to back you, basically, or buy you. Like,
I think
place.
I think that's kind of a misnomer. I think that's someone explained it incorrectly, because like I said, the judges don't know how much the contestants make in ticket sales until it's announced on stage. And by that time, the judges' scores have been tallied or are in the process of being tallied. So the judges don't know any information about ticket sales. So
and
they're literally just watching your interactions on those ticket sales.
Right. And what I'm talking about, Aaron, isn't about this year. Like, that was my understanding in previous years, that was a key aspect of it. So not knowing that had changed, that's what I was trying to tell this contestant. Like, you might really want to focus on selling some tickets, because I was like,
well,
it's gonna matter, and
so
ultimately it does. If
But
it's an
not
if-then
necessarily.
situation.
Exactly.
And it does in the sense that they're engaging, interacting with people.
Right.
They're showing that they can interact with a lot of different people, which is for a judge would be something that they would maybe are critiquing them on. Like I'll just use the example. I hate using this, but like when I'm buying or potentially buying tickets for this, like especially NAB, I have criteria that I personally make, and one of my criteria is you're actually asking and engaging me. You're not talking to a group of people. You're actually asking me. And I know it's a little different, a little shady for me, but that's something that if you engage me personally to buy tickets from you, I will buy tickets from you if I have the money. But like most of the time, if you actually engage me, and that's one of my little personal criteria. So for example, if you have one person approach your table and talk to the whole table about like selling tickets and whatever, okay, that's you approaching the whole table, but you're not actually engaging me. Whereas if I were walking around and you happen to catch me and you can actually talk to me, like you said, Aaron, about like, what are you selling tickets for? Where's the money going? I want to know those questions, and I'm probably only going to get that really on a one-on-one basis.
Right.
So if they're able to do that, then yes. So I get that as being part of their criteria for critiquing them, and the money not necessarily being the major part of it. But if you can engage someone or engage a group of people and maybe not necessarily sell tickets, at least you're showing the judges that you can engage a different group of people.
Right. And so that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for, did you sell the tickets to the attendees? It's, did you engage the attendees?
Yeah.
Right. So. And there's a key difference. This is my personal opinion. There's a key difference between getting me interested in the fundraising aspect and trying to somehow get in my pants or me get in your pants. I'm just saying, like, you don't need a raffle or a fundraiser to have that conversation. Totally separate.
Yeah.
Like, while it may help like grease the gears of a conversation, that is absolutely not necessary.
Yeah.
And that's probably my only personal feedback for anybody that's in titles or has done it is you can raise a ton of money without having to make it about sexy time or the part that I actually really don't care, which is like this weird pity situation where they're kind of like, well, don't you think I'm cute and I'm worth it or whatever? And I'm kind of like, wow, like that's a whole other thing. And girl, you're kind of opening your own can and I'm not wanting to be around for what you're serving. Mm-hmm. Like that's just a bit too much in that case. But everybody kind of approaches things differently. And I think the most important thing is that, we wanted to kind of engage in this conversation and say, there's a lot of differences that are out there between how they're done, between the communities, what title you can get, what the expectations are when you compete, once you're done competing and that kind of stuff. I don't think this is the end of it. I think there'll be more to come in the future as, this kind of stuff evolves. The NAB title class, I guess is what I want to call them, for this year, as we discussed in our last show. Damon, I think you and I are kind of on the same page. We're very pleasantly surprised and happy, yes, with the diversity that came up in that grouping, and really is kind of potentially continuing that whole kind of like situation of breaking away from what we've talked about in the past of these archetypes that people think like, well, this is what a bear is and so on and so forth.
Right.
And my hope is that, that trend kind of continues on so that literally, I think this year was the first year that people in the audience, anybody could potentially look up there and be like, wow, not only could I be a contestant, I could actually fucking win. Like,
right. Yeah. Right. I was really happy with the choices this year. I do want to go back to something that you all spoke about in the last episode. It's about judging and how the top 5 are chosen.
Right.
So during interviews, each judge has a list of the top 4 categories. Bear is the overall. Whoever's going to get the highest amount of points, that's the one they're going to get. Right. So the judges during interview, they don't converse during each other, but during interview they have the list of the other 4 categories. So Cub, now Admirer, Muscle Bear, and Daddy Bear, and the judges vote themselves which category they think they belong to. So contestant number 1 will come in and they'll go through their interview and they'll say, okay, judge number 1 says, I think this person fits the Cub and I think they might fit Muscle Bear and they might fit Admirer. When the contest is done and they have tallied all of the scores together, the top 5, their judges' sheets are pulled. And they look at, okay, well, here's the contestant who won Bear. Overall points, no trying to figure out what title that person gets. Off to the side. So you have the 4 titles left there. And they tally up what the judges then decided what category they felt like they fit in. So if all 7 judges said, well, contestant number 2 fit Admirer, and that's the person that scored the 4th runner-up, bam, Admirer is the title that one gets. Well, now that one's off the list. Mm-hmm. So then you come down to the next 3, and so okay, the 3rd runner-up, what did the judges decide they fit in? Okay, well, they say that they decide they're Cub, so bam, they get Cub. That one's off the list. So that leaves Daddy Bear and Muscle Bear. Right. Mm-hmm. Second runner-up, so you work down the list. So right, it actually could fall in any order on who gets the other 4 titles.
So it sounds like it's a duality of popularity amongst the judges, like categorization and elimination. So, because what we're saying is second, or you're working your way up, I guess, from bottom to top in terms Correct. Of point totals between 5, 4, 3, 2.
5, 4, 3, 2. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then from there, it's about how many of the judges all agree to this title at this level. And then it naturally gets eliminated as you move up, and it's kind of like up. So as you get to second place, quote unquote, second most points, they just get whatever's left. Right. And that's not me demeaning. It's just we've crossed an elimination. The other titles have been given out, so you're kind of working it from 2 different.
And I'm gonna stop you momentarily because I spoke backwards. It actually works. So one gets Bear, 2 then gets wherever the judges put them at, 3 then gets the next title that they were put out. So it works so that way. It goes from top. It's not top. 5, right? It's top to bottom.
So fifth or the 5th to 2nd. Got it.
An interesting point. I don't know if you know this, Aaron, but Chuck in the live chat asked, can the judge pick multiple categories for a single contestant? Meaning, of those 4, could they say contestant number 3 could be Admirer and/or Cub?
Yes, they can, and so then those are all tallied across all the judges. So whatever the judges say, contestant number 4 fits Admirer the most, but if Admirer was also someone else and that Admirer got more points, then they go to the next category that all the judges said that they felt like they fit.
Which to me that makes sense. Like if it were me, which obviously I'm not in charge of this, I would just make it a gradient scale. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I would just be like, okay, this contestant, if they don't get most points, where do you rank them in the other 4? Mm-hmm. And then that way it's just a matter of, Damon, you probably know what I'm talking about. Like it's just a matter of like a calculation. Like, okay, they got this thing and boom, you're done.
Yeah.
From the sounds of it, the Tallywhacker of Southwest Ohio has a very sophisticated computer software Excel spreadsheet or something that does all this magic math. I'm just giving you shit, Damon. But I understand, you probably did it manually a couple of times and you were like, fuck this shit, I'm out. Either something helps me as a tool or not, because it can be very daunting.
Actually, what ended up happening for me to become the Tally Master was the 1st or 2nd year of Tri-State Leather. The guy they had to be their Tally Master, requested an assistant in a sense, or someone to kind of, or the contest requested that someone else kind of be there to kind of help out. And I really wanted to learn how to do it because I'm a big math geek and whatever, and I love knowing stuff. So I was like, let me learn how to do it. And he had a program that he already had built. It's not hard. If you know Excel, you can build it yourself. And I probably could have built it myself, but he already had one built. So that's what I've been using. So, and it's great. And I've used it I've used it most often, the most often, but I have run into situations where, where I've had to have more contestants than the current format is formatted for.
Right.
So you have to edit and thing. I've had more categories that were judged that I needed to get point values for. So it's a matter of changing it and updating it. So I've done that every so often, but it is, I could potentially, in this situation, probably make a separate spreadsheet for the judges to put their categories in, and then depending on who wins, ta-da, this is the most one that they got, this is the next one they got, blah, blah, blah. It would be a lot, but I could see it happening. Anyway, now you got me thinking, so.
Well, you never know. I mean, it could be a money-making opportunity to create a software that's usable on a mobile platform that you could sell to contests, for a nominal fee to download, and it would just do the tabulations and, and that kind of stuff with the...
Sorry, it exists. It already exists. It's really expensive because it's such a minimally used product.
Yeah, funny that. It's if it was popular, the price could come down.
Exactly.
Good deal. The guys in the live chat are cracking me up. They're like, Excel is your friend. AJ's like, #truth. Is there anything else you guys wanted to say on the topic before we move into cooldown at all?
No, I think we're good.
Oh, okay.
Nice. So, oh, by the way, before we go into our next part, just the kind of side thing since Gary wasn't here. Hey, Gary, what are you wearing?
Clothes.
But you got a nice little hat there and a shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
So there's this podcast that I heard of a number of years ago where these guys just kind of ramble on and talk for an indeterminate amount of time. Sometimes it's a short show. Sometimes it's a really fucking long show. So yeah, no, I have my embroidered distressed ball cap as usual, and then I have the ringer tee. So it's not ring around the collar, haha, and sleeve. This one in particular has stripes on the sleeves. It's a little more sporty.
I think it's referred to as a football shirt.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they call this one the jersey shirt because of the cut style. But yeah, so.
Do they make them in a 3/4 length arm, like a baseball style?
They do.
You can select that option too.
Yeah, David's aware that there's that because I actually have, I don't know, it's somewhere in the closet probably, or it needs to be washed. I have the full length sleeve, and there is one that's shorter.
3/4.
Yeah. But on a short person like me, it kind of
it's still a long sleeve.
Also, notably, it's not gathered. So it's not an elastic band or anything on the end. Yeah. It's not cuffed like a sweatshirt or whatever. And the reason I say that is because for some people that's important. This is very loose in particular, not the shirt, but the other one. And so if you're a person who likes to push up sleeves and you have a little OCD about them staying in place, that's probably not the shirt to get. Because it won't do that.
This guy right here. I don't like that at all.
Well, where they don't stay in place?
Yeah, I hate that they don't stay in place.
Okay.
All right.
Let's talk about Dick. I totally forgot to look. Damon?
So this one is aptly titled Coming At You. It's an animated GIF of a very nice looking man. And he comes quite a bit.
Whoa!
Yeah,
I know, right?
Damn!
That's a normal Sunday.
Oh, I'm just using my fan to block. I was not prepared for that. For the record.
Yeah, it's. I love it because it's. Yeah, I mean, it's an explosion and it's great.
Oh,
I'm
dang. I don't have
quite
one.
a fan of it.
That man needs a Cubs Out Loud handy towel.
Unfortunately, we don't have Chester here to just like grab it from like just off camera.
Mine is not in my office, so
mine's in my side drawer. So yeah, it's not in this one.
I was like, I'm trying to think of where where do I have one in the office? I used to, but I don't. I still have I think I still have a couple. Oh wait, no, yeah, never mind. Far away.
What about you? Okay, what about you, Gary?
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the awkwardness of Tumblr, shall we?
Oh,
where
sure.
you're just kind of scrolling through Tumblr, and then you happen to come across a video, and you're like, oh, one of these people that said video looks a little familiar to me. So, yeah, and then you're like, oh, that's a Facebook friend. Like, I have never met this person in person, per se, but we have enough, like, in common that we've, sort of followed each other a little bit. We're not that close, but, yeah, so I ended up calling this one, Oh That Bear Shower Duo, because the Tumblr account is Oh That Bear so it's a shower scene, but it's a daddy bear and his younger partner. They are partners in real life together. They're super adorable, and apparently the cub/pup has a trigger physically.
A pain trigger.
Yeah, well, yes, it is a pain trigger. I was gonna say no, but it is. It has good and bad to it. Too much is a thing. So, anyways, I was pleasantly surprised, and I was like, "Oh, well, would you look at that?" And it just posted how many days ago? 3, 4, 5 days ago. What is today? Yeah, like 5 days ago, and it's already over 1,100 notes. So it's got a little popularity to it.
Yeah.
But it was so funny because there was a part of me that's like, should I be watching this? Because I know who's in it.
Yes.
But
yes.
I'm a little weird that way. Like, so when people post things about themselves and I know them, sometimes I'm like, hey, no, I like knowing them a certain way, not that way.
I am completely the opposite. Completely the opposite. I love finding people's Tumblrs and I'm like, oh, I know who that is.
Yeah.
Same
and
here.
now I know the weird shit that they like.
I am the same way. Let me just write that down and put that in my head for memory for later.
Exactly. Got to put that in the toy box.
Like, oh, I'm gonna go see. I'm seeing that person this weekend. Let me just see. Okay, let's.
You remember that post you made the other day?
See, that's the type of shit I don't want to do to somebody. I don't want to be like, oh, so, back in February of 2018, I was minding my own business in bed, just tumbling along, and then saw this video. I may have watched it a handful of times on repeat.
Sounds like the Canadian Maple video.
Oh, that was all right. For the record, that was a whole other situation. It was a short video that was basically a little longer than a GIF, and it gives you life.
It was good. It was good.
Aaron has seen it.
It was good.
It's not viewable on mobile, but it is still out there.
Well, case in point, kids, here's your warning. If you ever post anything out to the internet, it is permanent.
Just
so you,
if you need to, you can reference my Tumblr, boxcub.tumblr.com. It's on there.
Nice.
Just saying, if you ever need some Canadian Maple in your life.
So, Aaron, you've given us a
Tumblr. So
Yeah.
I just named it Sexy Daddy. I have been known for liking the Silver Fox's Little Salt and Pepper. And I really like this gentleman who does these photos. I am not sure of his name, to be honest with you. But all of his photos are real men, real life. And so they're very candid shots. They're not staged. And I just think this guy is completely gorgeous. And that butt is just perfectly.
Yep. I've seen this picture. I'm pretty sure I've reblogged this picture before. It is he's a great looking guy, and
yes,
Yeah, it is a really good picture. So that's just me overall.
I'm really kind of intrigued because, while yes, this man is very beautiful to look at, and I'm like, oh, look at that. He's got that great like multicolor kind of midst of graying hair and a beard and all that, and he's laying in a bed, and then I'm like, what hotel is he in?
Right.
I don't travel enough to know, but I'm sure some bitches out there are like, oh, I know that print. That obviously is a that hotel because of the
Well, I'm pretty sure that's a Hyatt. So.
Wow.
Wow.
I was like, at first I was kind of like, oh, that's a really nice. No, that's not a bedroom. That's a hotel room.
Like,
yep.
Why would you have a second bed in your own bedroom?
Because one is to play in and the other one's to sleep in.
I meant in your house, Aaron.
Oh, in your house. Okay. So we have 2 rooms. One is to sleep in, and then the other one is to play in.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's just a wall between the beds.
Yeah. So this is interesting. Hang on. I'm looking at the tags, and I clicked on the one because it's Cigar Cub Mitch.
Mm-hmm.
As in Cigar Cub, Michigan, maybe. Interesting. The blog subtitle is "A Vision of Men" by John Edward Fink.
Yes,
so I'm guessing that's the photographer's name.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And so this photo is actually on his Tumblr account, so you can look at some of the other shots that he's taken.
Wow. I just clicked out to his. Oh, hello. Well, I know why Aaron follows him then. Jeez Louise. Oh, Boat and Rob. He's taking pictures of Boat and Rob, apparently. Yay.
But see, and that's the thing for me. They're all actual gentlemen that you could run into on the street. And while I understand, porn guys are like that too, it's just for me, and I guess it may be just the way he does his shoots. They all look extremely approachable.
Yeah.
I am so amused by this one picture. It's really not meant to be like taken seriously. It's sort of a snap. It says cleanliness is next to godliness. Yeah. And it's in Texas, and this guy's like standing up in a bathtub, and he's got, a lot of soap suds in a specific area. But the photographer it's kind of like he did it with his phone. He was just kind of like, snap.
He does. Uh-huh. Yeah, every
so
once in a while he'll do selfies with his clients during the shoot.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
I may have to start following a blog.
Well then.
Giving me. All right.
All right. Moving on into the links. So I was talking about Night Attack earlier. Both of my links actually are related to my binging of Night Attack lately. The first one is to a former COL host from the original series, Griff. He recently, like a couple of years ago, was diagnosed with ADHD. And he's been working on that as well as becoming a coach. He got a certification from the ADD something Academy. I don't remember the specifics. I probably could just pull up his about page and find out. What was it? The ADD Coach Academy. Go fake. So he's certified, so he offers some services, and he has a podcast called This ADHD Life, obviously. He also has some video versions and such like that. He also has a Patreon, which I don't think support. Yeah, I think it's on a support page. There's a link to his Patreon, which I think is patreon.com/thisadhdlife. So I was the one who started him into podcasting. he got a better mic and started doing voice work and stuff while we were doing the show. And once the original series ended, eventually first off, he married his husband, and got into that. So I'm very proud of him for what he's done, and he's a really nice guy. We had a running joke about boy butter, but that's another matter altogether. But he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
So.
Jeff's
So
a
check it.
podcast daddy now.
I know, right? So, and speaking of podcasts, Night Attack, where he actually was on their Diamond Time a couple of times. I linked to the latest episode where Mikey Newman came on to give them a quiz, which was amazing. Night Attack in general is like hilarious. Cool. Their producer Bryce, I think, is gay. It's we have two just dorks podcasting on the internet. This started off as the NSFW show. Actually, they had a show called the BB Live Show, which went to Leo Laporte's Twit network, and they did the NSFW show. And eventually, they became independent. And actually, they were one of the first podcasts to start up on Patreon. And they're at episode 208 or 209 actually now, but the one I linked to is 208. And they have a quiz with Mike Newman, and it's hilarious. So check it out, and see if you become my friends, and maybe eventually I might try to slip us onto their Diamond Time. Who knows?
Neat.
Damon, what do you got?
So this is actually from our pre-show conversation. This is Amazon Echo for Seniors. It was a very funny SNL skit, and I just thought I would post it. Essentially, it's really funny. It's about Alexa for the elderly, and it's just really, really funny. It's one of their better, more recent skits that is it's a little old, but it's really fun. I like it. I like it a lot. So
Allegra, what is Jeff doing?
Okay, for the record, I was very confused because I just clicked on the link and YouTube decided to play me a Big Mac McDonald's commercial. And I was like, what is going on? Because it wasn't obvious, because it's people talking to the camera, and this woman says to me, to the camera, I just love your special sauce. And I'm like, hold up. I'm like, this could be an SNL skit, but I'm confused. Wow.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
I don't know who McDonald's went to for their new PR campaign, but anyways.
The producers of 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, snap.
Oh, yeah.
Snap. Okay. Gary, how about you?
Okay, so for all of my sci-fi fantasy geeks out there, this is big news. If you didn't already know it, I only knew half of it. If you love either of these movies, The Dark Crystal, Jim Henson classic, or Labyrinth, both of them are coming back to the big screen. Dark Crystal is currently available for a limited engagement, I think, of 4 days as a Fathom event. So if you don't know, Fathom is this company that actually brings stage productions or classics back to the screen, and you can actually go see them at a local theater at like your Cineplex or whatever. So I knew that Dark Crystal was coming. I kind of forgot to mark my calendar. So friends of mine, I was very jealous. We're going and seeing it locally tonight. They're doing it, I think, also Wednesday this week, and then maybe again on Thursday or Friday. But what I've included are the links. So Dark Crystal is right now. Labyrinth is coming at the end of April. I think it's April 29th, and then like May 1st and maybe May 3rd, something like that. But both of the links will tell you what the dates are, and then there's actually, it's pretty cool. Fathom, like if you look, you can put a calendar reminder and shit. So I am super spaz about the fact that you can go see these on the big screen. The Dark Crystal, I believe, is just the original production being put on the big screen. Labyrinth, very important for those of you that aren't aware. They're putting a new intro in the beginning. Oh. Jennifer Connelly, who plays Sarah, has done a new snippet for the lead-in. That's the intro to the movie. And Jim Henson's, no, not Jim Henson's son, Brian, the artist, I want to say it's his son. They've done a new piece, and they're somehow weaving together Jim Henson's storyteller line as an aspect of trying to explain Labyrinth, I think. So there's some new stuff that has never been seen before. that kind of stuff. So I'm super excited because not only is it going to be on the big screen, but there's like some new element kind of shit.
Trying to explain Labyrinth?
What?
What do you mean by it's trying to explain Labyrinth?
So when Labyrinth was released in the box office, it didn't do very well. It has a huge cult following now, but when it was originally released, it didn't really go over. And I think what they're trying to do is, for those that have never seen the film, they're trying to give it a little bit of a placement. So what my guess is they're going to say is Labyrinth is a story from the storyteller, which is a character that Jim Henson had created. So I think what they're doing is they're basically saying, like, there is a tale of a young girl, Sarah, and this is the movie. You know what I mean? Like, this is the tale, so to speak. I think the movie is fine on its own, and they don't necessarily need to do that. But again, this is decades later, and they're trying to maybe reach a different audience now than they did before.
Don't you think that even with the original, never mind. I'm just like, if they were doing it more of like, they were doing more of an introduction and kind of like doing it in like some sort of honor for David Bowie, I could kind of see that, but it just seems weird to me. Like, I don't think it's necessary. I don't know. Maybe it's actually pretty cool. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So regardless, I'm excited because I'm going to get to see it on the big screen. So, and then for those of you that don't know, I don't have a link to it, but Dark Crystal is actually going to have a prequel aspect piece that the Henson company has already been working on, is going to be coming out. So rumor has existed for many, many years, and the fandom wishes that there would be a sequel for Labyrinth. Jennifer Connelly has actually kind of talked about the fact that she would be game for it. I think it would be awesome if they basically kind of redid the story only years later, because now Jennifer Connelly's old enough to be a parent. So it would be wickedly cool if Sarah, the main character, actually had a child who had a run-in with the Goblin King. Of course, David Bowie's now gone. So they'd have to come up with a new element, but I hold out hope. So anyways, there's 2 links to the Fathom events. You can go check them out. That's my picks.
Nice. Aaron, what do you got?
So I don't know if anyone else knows about him, but his name is Puddle's Pity Party. He's the guy who dresses up like a clown, but he has a really good voice to me. He recently covered the Disturbed cover of the cover of Simon and Garfunkel's The Sound of Silence. So it does change a little because Disturbed changed the arrangement slightly from the Simon and Garfunkel. So then Puddles changes the arrangement slightly from the Disturbed. So he actually calls it The Sound of Silence Undisturbed.
Ha!
So
nice.
But he's along that genre of singers who have a tendency to take songs and give them a more 50s or 40s, 50s sound.
Retro
sort of like
feel, yeah.
Right, like Postmodern Jukebox.
Yep.
They're another one that I really like. So he just recently released the Sound of Silence.
Nice. So I may have to look at that later.
The drummer's really cute.
Yes.
What?
The drummer.
Oh, I see. I hadn't really looked at the video, but I was like, oh, okay.
We're not talking about like drummer as in, Tibbers, the North American drummer boy, or drummer boy North America.
Yay!
By the way, congratulations, Tibbers.
Yay, Tibbers!
I'm so proud of you.
Yay!
I thought you guys talked about it when I was off.
No, we
didn't.
Even connected. I didn't even think about that.
Well, it's quite apropos
really bad
given the topic.
Because Tibbers, big COL fan. You've seen him on this show on the COL Drag Race Tea Time. He's in our chat, which, by the way, this is the end of the show. Oh. You can join us in Telegram. See that link down there that says Telegram, tinyurl.com/telegram-col for you audio listeners. You can join us in the chat there, where we may end up writing another erotic story. I don't know. I really would like an incest one for Daddy's Day, but that's just me. Okay. I'm just saying. That'd be amazing.
Moving along.
You can pop over to our website, comesout.com. There's voicemail at 361 COL Talk. That's 361-265-8255. please leave us a sexy voicemail or something. It doesn't matter. Your name could be blank. At least that's what I always heard that the voicemails we did receive. You can find us on all the interwebs at Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Google+, and, of course, YouTube if you're watching us. Or if you're not, you can watch us on YouTube so you can see our pretty faces. All that comes out loud in the appropriate place of the URL. The official Bear website it comes out loud is the bearunderground.net, who were at NAB, and I got to see some pictures, people taking pictures with them. It was amazing. And you can rate us on iTunes, subscribe to us at Google Play Podcasts. It gives us a thumbs up on Stitcher Radio. You can find me anywhere on the internet. It says Box Puppy, Box Cub, Box something or other.
I'm TheaterCub79 on Bear Underground, Tumblr, Growler, etc., etc. Or you can find me as pup_Umbra on Twitter.
You can find Chester as the pup up there on Tumblr and Twitter, or in various bear dating sites as Pup Shutter or Cupcake76, or at the local airport of taking care of cars. I don't know.
Yay. I thought you were going to say that he was giving handies or blowjobs in the back of rental cars.
See? I should have thought of that. Anyway.
That's where I thought you were going, and then you were so clean about it. And I was like, oh, that's disappointing. Anyways, if you would like to get...
Uh-oh.
Some websites.
Oh, there he goes.
Gary, you froze.
And
that.
I'm having a little bit of a Skype garble. Hopefully that's not for everybody. So, our illustrious guest with us, Aaron, if people would like to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
I am pretty much Salty Dog USN, most places, Tumblr specifically, or you can find me on FetLife as Sir Bubba Bear, or on the Bear Underground as KY Bubba Bear, or in the Telegram chat group.
There you go.
Yay.
He's there. And Gary, could you repeat yours because we didn't catch it?
Thanks, Skype. If you would like to get in touch with me, you could find me online as Gerber73.
And with all that, say good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good one, y'all.
Not so much. Yay. Oh, God. Okay.
Everybody's timing was thrown up from the thing. So, Damon, it looks like you need to go use one of those urinals.
Yep.
Okay. He'll be back.
Aaron, thanks for coming on the show and
certainly
talking with us and helping set the record straight.
Well, I hope that answered some questions.
No, it did. It really did. And I realized, like, we talked a lot about NAB, and I'm hoping people don't see this as like a strict criticism of NAB, and I'm also not giving it a glowing review. I'm trying my best to be moderate about the fact that it's an imperfect system and they're doing the best that they can.
Right.
And that's just
constructive criticism, maybe.
Yeah,
right.
Well, and that's one of the things that Damon and I, we're unique and we're different. Like, because of his involvement with contests and that, and my perspective, we're probably on the outskirts of wanting all that knowledge. Because I think that's what Chester was basically saying last week. He's like, well, that's why there's judges. Like, which was, I think what he was trying to say is, no offense, like, if you want to know it, then fucking judge or whatever. Now that I know you can apply to judge, I will probably not do that. But no,
but that's the thing. You actually would be a good judge because you are a pillar in the community. You are an event coordinator, so you see how attendees attend events. You can look at different things. You are someone in the bear community who holds, whether you believe it or not, you hold a position that someone knows you.
And you could also promote Cubs Out Loud.
And you're a podcaster, yes.
Yeah, because that's totally, credentials feather in the cap that makes a hill of beans.
Look, you wear your Cubs Out Loud hat and you wear a Drenchford t-shirt. Just saying. Promote both.
Yeah.
Or get a Drenchford t-shirt with the Cubs Out Loud logo on the back or something. So one way you're seeing Drenchford, the other way they're seeing Cubs Out Loud. Kind of the both. We could do that.
Wow. Because that's really what I need is to be dual branded when I go places.
I mean, we could make the official Cubs Out Loud shirt of Drenchford if we wanted to. But
I'm just proud of the fact that every once in a blue moon, a friend will actually introduce me just as, this is Gary, and not, this is Gary from Drench Fur, or this is Gary from Cubs Out Loud, or whatever. It's just like, oh yeah, I just get to be a person without all this other stuff attached. But yeah, no, I would like us at some point to be able to have the technology and equipment to do something like, broadcast from like a run with an audience and that kind of stuff. But that's
a future goal.
Yeah.
Well, you did that at Drench Fur last year, didn't you? With the Underbears.
Yeah, it was all right.
Well, that was recorded to. That wasn't live.
Oh, it wasn't live? Okay.
Well, I mean, it was live recorded, but it wasn't like live to YouTube. Because as we discovered in Indianapolis, Wi-Fi is a tricky, fickle bitch.
Yeah. Especially with a lot of video. Yes.
Right. And that's one of the downsides. And apparently the local one major cable provider is starting to be questionable in their services because tonight, while we were recording, Skype's yelling at me. It's like, you have a poor network connection. And I'm like, motherfucker, I am direct lined into my fucking modem. Don't give me shit about. So that's where I'm like, oh, great. So now maybe it really isn't my device. Maybe it's my carrier, which doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Since I just got another lovely letter about how they've increased my internet speed. Wasn't that nice of them?
It sounds like they have an issue at the hub that's near you.
Probably.
So.
Hey, I'm going to stop streaming.